Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people. And we share the same umbilical cord. It shouldn't be like that.
I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing politics of conmanship. And even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax, then you double.
In politics, there is the issue of trust. For you to turn around and then stab the same people who gave you that trust, there is no other level of dishonesty. Na hii mambo utaona dunia tu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
When you're impeached, you're impeached. When you're sentenced, you're sentenced.
Madam Chief Justice.
Until the sentence is set aside.
Ukibeba vitu kwa roho utakufa. If you carry things in your heart, you will die.
The reason for which you went to school and then gathered experience, that reason must be paid for.
Oh, right.
Okay.
This level.
Shape up or ship out.
Levels don't change.
No.
Since I'm not shipping out.
You know my business partner here.
Shipping out.
Are we talking about the sheep in the bathtub? Or
the sheep man.
Emmanuel Talabu used to tell us a story of they were in school and they've been told to write composition about a sheep. His classmate raises a hand. Teacher, are you talking about a sheep or a sheep goat?
Thank you very much, Eric, and it's good to be at the Situation Room.
always a pleasure coming here. This is the most challenging interview panel in Kenya. You guys are very well informed, and as you can see, Charles today very philosophical.
To be poor in this country is the greatest sin you can commit, not just from a legal perspective, but from life generally. It is very, very skewed.
We just heard on the floor of Parliament, just most recently, a leader within the ODM saying that Sisi ni ng'ombe is a baba.
Yeah.
Which means that you are willing to be milked dry.
Hapo.
You cannot force me to believe. I'll give way. If it's land that I'm told to return to you, I will. Okay? Because the court has said so. But I'll continue saying, watu wamenirusha. That's all that I'm doing.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
You tune into Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Ramanyang.
Amen. Amen.
So 1 hour is over?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It gets over.
Can you imagine
in 20 minutes.
What the big boys have also done?
I'm very proud of myself.
When you understand about partnership in politics, it's like the way marriage is these days. When you're looking for a wife, you're like, maybe you can help me pay for fees as I pay for the rent.
Why should you have a lioness living in your bedroom?
I have to tell you a story. I went for a prayer meeting, which was called for the spouses of candidates for senators and governors. And when I got to the gate, the lady who was the secretary, she refused to. She's telling me, no. Leo tunataka wa mama. Leo ni wa mama. I'm telling her, no. She said, no, sio siku yenu. And I thought, there's a problem here, because if it was a man, but this was a lady.
It will be called First Ladies until you change the name.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
This is one of the hottest show that we can ever miss in the morning, and it's a show that really gives a real situation in the Situation Room.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you guys so much. Nduthai, nice meeting you. Even beautiful in person more than in photos.
Say that again. Character is like pregnancy. You cannot hide it. People hiding here and there, but after 2-3 months, 5 months, now you realize, so that is why the attitude that you were showing us, you're pregnant.
It's like what my grandmother would say. You cannot pickpocket a naked man.
How's that? It's communal, isn't it?
No comment.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
The man who looks at a beautiful girl and doesn't talk to her will end up serving lunch at her wedding.
Aya, City. Do like that.
My father has killed a mouse. Will he fail to kill a man?
Ameua panya.
Small
Mtu
mammal,
atamshinda.
big mammal.
Mtu atamshinda. I mean, I don't understand. What are they
How
saying?
are we comparison? I mean, you kill a mouse.
What are they saying?
What they're saying is, my father has killed a mouse. Will he fail to kill a man? Name, surprise. Someone's name.
The name surprised you?
No, the name is surprise.
No, what am I saying? I'm from Nigeria, man. I met somebody called I Believe. So I was like, your name is I Believe? Yes, my name is I Believe. But that's the short form. I said, excuse me? I said, yes, my name is I Believe. So what's the full name? I believe in the goodness of
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Okay, good morning. Welcome to Thursday. And people have left Nairobi, but let's see what the streets look like anyway. Gong Road, not much happening there. Coming into city, light traffic in the area being getting towards the city, mortuary roundabout. We're looking at some traffic coming off of Thika Superhighway, but nothing to get any way nervous about. All right, coming off of Kiambu Road, we're not seeing anything there. Mombasa Road is looking good. It's coming out towards the Nyeri Stadium roundabout and then getting onto Huru Highway and then out into the city. We're not going to deal with too much right about now, but perhaps in half an hour things will develop and we'll be here for it. Let's know what's going on where you are as we start off Thursday. Spice FMKE on Twitter, on X. Let's keep things moving this morning.
Spice FM, Malindi. This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not...
It's after 6. How are you?
Hey, this is more serious than I thought.
Good morning.
Are we singing the
I have
time?
no
We
idea,
don't know.
man.
You sound like those people in
Yes,
the monastery who sing their experience.
Yes.
My soul doth magnify the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God, my Savior. Then they sing like that the whole day, walking through, being pious and prayerful.
That is exactly what we are doing. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Very good.
How was your day yesterday?
My friend, I don't even remember that there was a day.
We greet one CT Muga as well.
Hey. Yeah?
Niendelee tu kucheza cheza mwingi.
Oh no, we're being pious.
Mambo basi.
Lakini mko sawa?
Mimi nashuku.
Kwa nini?
Eric, sioni kama uko sawa.
Eric, but no, wait a moment. Are you saying this as a constant, or are you saying this is something?
No, as in generally, definitely today, specifically today. Sioni kama. I don't want to be quoted. I'm just talking about today. The other ad, I beg. I don't know. You're the one, it's actually too as the sausage. It's not me. Generally speaking. Today.
Ai, mumoni kuja vibaya bwana.
Sheesh, until you have woken up.
Yeah.
Monday.
Mtu akiwa mpole kidogo hivi muna
Did you hear this one? It's Monday. It's not. Today's Thursday.
We're doing fine. This climate change thing just changed.
Changed everything. Changed the entire climate.
Even the day,
Where? Otherwise, city? Otherwise?
Many go to at least, Baba.
Good.
It's getting warmer and warmer and warmer outside. Here it's freezing. But outside it's getting warmer and warmer and warmer.
Yes.
So I'm not sure whether this is a foretaste of some rain that is
coming
on its way, and a lot of it. See ile L anasikia kunjiani.
Yeah. Imagine.
And those who predict things like L are telling us that the rains are going to be stupendous. Heavy.
Proper.
Mingi.
Proper.
Yes.
Properly. Haya. Ni sawa. Uko fit lakini wewe? Very good. Hata mimi pia niko sawa. Everybody, good morning. Welcome to the Situation Room this Thursday morning. We will be having several conversations. At 8 a.m., we'll be joined by somebody who has been looking at the climate talks that have just concluded in Nairobi. Her name is Kathambi Karia. She's the CEO of Creed Advisory and an expert on climate financing, the hits and misses of Africa's first climate summit. Looking at the communique that came out yesterday from at the end of that summit, what was agreed by the leaders, what does it mean, where does it take us as a continent and as a world? That's at 8 a.m. And at 9, we'll be talking about preserving forgotten architectural design through the African Heritage House. You know the African Heritage House? Hey, Alan Donovan did a lot of work over many years, traveling across Africa and picking pieces. Hapa anaokota mchanga, pale anaokota mawe, nini, artifacts, bringing them all, putting them in this one house. Now, we'll be joined by Herman Muli Bigam, who's an entrepreneur and founder of Tosheka Products, to talk about this African Heritage House and preserving those architectural designs in there. That's at 9 a.m. Keep it here for this and more conversations. Are you online? Because we are live streaming on YouTube and Facebook. And if you're online, please just get onto the comment section. Let us know where you're tuned in from. And we'll do like that. And then shortly we shall look at who's online and acknowledge their presence.
$15 degrees, partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi, highs of 26 and lows of 14. 26 will be the high in clear Nakuru at 14, and at 13 it's partly cloudy in Nyeri, highs of 25. 22 will be the high in a mostly cloudy Eldoret at 13. It's 23 and partly cloudy in Mombasa, highs of 30, and we'll see highs of 29 in a cloudy Malindi at 24. It's 18 and cloudy in Kisumu, highs of 27, and 26 will be the high in a mostly cloudy Kakamega at 16. It's raining this morning in Kampala at 18, highs of 28. And we see clear skies so early in Dar es Salaam at 23, highs of 31 and lows of 22. It's clear at 9 in Johannesburg, highs of 25 and highs of 30 in a clear Lagos at 25. 25 and clear in Kinshasa, highs of 34 and lows of 23. 31 and a haze over warm skies in Beijing, highs of 33 and lows of 23. It's partly cloudy in Paris at 18. There is a extreme high temperature warning of 33 and above in Paris, and we'll see highs of 30 over a hazy London at 18. It's clear at 27. There's also a heat advisory for New York still Wednesday night. Coming into Thursday, they'll see highs of 35 and lows of 24.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings.
Hiya, Basi.
94.4.
Vesh Musanga is online and she's listening from Zambia, specifically Lusaka.
Okay.
Good morning. Pure as Rock is saying, where is our news? Don't worry. Everything is okay. Still.
That's the news.
That's the news, that all is well. That there's no news. Could be. Evans Nyangano says, good morning to Eric and Muga. Up and tuned in from Rangao in Kajiado County. Looking forward to great conversations as usual. Karibu sana. Leshan Sanchez says, Hamjambo. CT Ndu and Eric, a great morning from Kisumu. Good morning to you. Muga Alex says, Bonjour Spice team, tuned in from County of Milk and Honey, known as Meru. Really?
Meru is the county of milk and honey.
Well, so he says.
Okay.
Goge Alex, yes, that's you. Don Sabwa says, good morning, the great three, Ndu, CT, and Eric. Ndu, you're the best. Thank you very much. Because we are pronouncing things in Malawi. He says, cool in pronunciation. Thursday in Malawi, we say Lachinai.
Leo ni Lachinai.
Leo ni Lachinai. CT, nimeambiwa, I remind you about TBT. TBT, you know, is what? Throwback Thursday. Throw it.
Oh, for a moment there I thought it was one of these body rolling mill type companies.
I wonder what they would be producing. TBT, Throwback Thursday. On this day, you remember things that happened on Thursday. You get it?
Yes.
Okay, so happy TBT to you.
So yeah, it's a good thought though.
Sir George Gashoiri says, good morning. My breakfast show is always irresistible. Tuned in. Agri Momanye says, City Muga, Ndu, Latiff, and Ednah. Praise God.
Amina.
I used to fear lions, but when I read about how Samson killed a lion, it was actually, yes, he did. He did, and he found bees and honey. I stopped fearing them, and I now fear who killed Samson. The guy who killed the lion was killed by somebody. That guy.
Okay. So Samson, the guy who lives somewhere in the Middle East,
That's Samson.
Samson, see?
The dreadlocked guy.
The dreadlocked guy.
Middle East.
Who fell to his knees because of a woman.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that was the right
so
thing
now
to
he's
do.
telling us who that person that he fears.
Don't fear lions.
Fear women. Woman. I didn't say it
So people followed Samson's example. That's why this place, they don't have lions anymore.
Well done, CT.
Samson that killed all of them.
Alois Damien says, good morning, folks. County 043, locked in Kamakawa. Usama Hussein Malo says, good morning, everybody. Please invite Honorable Peter Salasia to discuss about climate change.
Okay.
That should be fun. Okay, Mombasa's tuned in, says Robert Mbogo. Mugwe Wainaina is tuned in from Roiro, says good morning. Zeke, short for Ezekiel, is here. Sophia Damery says, good morning, good people. Please let Spice FM have live programs throughout the day. Not only the situation, but there are live programs. Sophia.
What is live program?
11 o'clock, there is Sugar and Spice with
Live.
Yolanda and DJ Absolute. It is live until 2 p.m. Edward Quach comes in at 3 o'clock until
Live.
7 on the drive.
And then
See, those are live shows.
the day doesn't end there. She means streaming on
you
YouTube.
mean to stream on YouTube, sister? Okay, perhaps.
That's it.
Okay, sawa.
Sour.
The 2000 says, give Ndu a hug on my behalf. Oh yeah, bring it.
Ednah, come. Give Ndu
A hug on the behalf of somebody else.
Yes.
Bring it.
Weka your shot kwanza.
Bring
kubwa.
it. I'm waiting. I'm not moving until I get my hug. You know what they say.
Yes.
Hugs are like
Hug a day.
a hug a day. A hug a day does what? Ednah, stop doing this thing now. What are you talking about? He said, somebody please give Ndu a hug on my behalf.
Yes.
I'm not moving
On
until
your
the hug on
your
his behalf.
On behalf. Okay. Ednah, please.
Give Ndu a hug on
her behalf. You're short, bwana ni mbaya. Surely.
If you know what Ednah said to me. Okay, Jimmy Wekesa, good morning. Now everybody has seen Ednah today properly.
She hasn't been seen.
What did they do?
She's a criminal.
She put CT.
A criminal, this one.
She's a criminal.
Yeah. Look.
See?
She was hiding herself. We understand. Jimmy Wekesa says, good morning. Soulful Mambo ni matatu ya Ndu Eric Amasiti. He's zingine wachana nayo. Locked in from Dubai. Mbali says, Zimbabwe brothers have the most interesting names. Promise and prosperity to you all. Okay. Tuned in from Chengdu in China. Karanja is my name. You spice up my life. Hey, okay, there's so many people online this morning. P. Lento tuned in from Nakuru. Ukunda is where Lillian is and says good morning. Dennis is here. Ricardo, Steve Woman, Gogs Amu is here. Kesh Dani, George Biketi, Isaiah Victor, Enoch Wagara. Everybody says good morning. Keeping it spice. Locked in from where you are. Karibuni Sana.
There's a person called Mukta Ogle who also says good morning and shares a quote. Until you have money to finance your temptations, don't brag about morals. Too much is hidden in poverty.
Until you have money
to finance your temptations. Don't brag here about morals. Morals. You know, it's immoral for you to do this. It's immoral to do that. Ni pesa umekosa.
Poverty ndio inakusumbua because if you had money to do those things you're saying it's not right.
They would not be immoral.
Okay.
Sindio? Unaona vile inaingia.
I'm trying to get it. So give me a bit of time. I will get it.
It'll sink.
No, it'll sink.
It'll come.
Because it, yes, it's an interesting perspective.
Isn't it?
No, it is actually.
Provost Sami Wainaina used to say it here, it's because we don't have the opportunity. If you had the opportunity,
would
you
be
would not
corrupt.
be talking here and saying, oh, people are corrupt. Even you, if you were in that spot, you would do like that. More or less the same thing, eh?
Ah, yeah, City. Take us back to this country. Which one is it again this week?
Brother.
This week I am too.
This week is not over yet, man.
It's all right. We're in the Republic Gabonese.
Okay, that one. Yeah.
Okay, this one is particularly interesting. This one I slotted for Thursday. Said today, Thursday, this one.
It's the one.
A young person who travels a lot is older than the old who stay in the village.
A young person who travels a lot is older than the old person who stays in the village. Right. Assuming that the old person had never traveled in his youth.
Just traveled around the village from all, but now leaving the environs of the village and going beyond the known boundaries. Now that's traveling.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Let's look at the headlines.
All right. On the front page of the Standard this morning, 3.9 trillion shillings on the table for climate work. The communique that came out of the summit at the conclusion of it yesterday saw that this is the kind of money that is being pledged across Africa, right? This is different from the money that had been pledged, the $100 billion for climate damaging compensation. This is now money that's going to see certain things being done. President William Ruto managed to get pledges worth 26 billion shillings for Kenya during the Africa Climate Summit with a promise to push for a financing deal from multilateral lenders and have big polluters pay fair share for crisis. There are many things that came out of this yesterday and we'll be looking at those bit by bit. Raila's fury with ODM rebels. We saw that there was the ousting. What's the word I'm looking for? Expulsion. Raila Odinga's ODM made good its threat to punish members and they're pushing for it's wrong here, but okay. Raila Odinga's ODM made good its threat to punish members, now pushing William Ruto's agenda or going against party decisions. 5 members expelled and 3 of them fined. We'll look at those in detail. But those expelled, Gem MP, Elisha Odhiambo, Langata MP, Felix Odiwar, Rongo MP, Paul Abur, and Suba South MP, Karoli Omondi. That continues. So we'll look at that as well. Okay, Kome, the judicial independence is under attack. She's not happy with the way things are looking right now in terms of how judges and the entire judiciary is being handled.
Yeah.
Okay, education. You have 1 month, 30 days exactly, to apply for university funding. Should you not do it in this time, it would be very difficult for you to get it if you haven't.
Are they already categorizing people as what we're talking about?
Vulnerable, needy,
very
most,
vulnerable,
yes,
all
yes.
that?
Yes,
Already?
they are, yes.
But what are they using? What data are they using right now?
That's the question.
To
That what
categorize.
will they use to categorize? Because remember, all funding is dependent on that categorization. So now, as you are applying for the funding, you tell them. What I've been told is that you tell them there are certain questions that are on your form, and the answers to those questions will now then enable them to place you.
Okay.
Are both your parents there? Are they employed or not? Are they in business? Do you have adequate, etc., etc.? Then from that, they will use it to place or categorize.
They don't have enough. They don't have
They don't
sufficient.
have enough information
Because they need
to categorize.
they need to
But
counter check what you're
unfortunately-
saying.
Yeah, but because you need to find out. Because I could come and tell you anything, right?
Mhm.
But the thing is that they have a certain window within which to fund. Because
Okay.
remember, the semester has begun. Okay? And there are students who need this money to go to school with, whether it's loans or whether it
But
is the grant.
there's something else here about this money. You know, there's what those who are in charge of this money know, and there's what those who are seeking the money think they know. Because somebody will apply based on their need. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, that need may not necessarily agree with the criteria that those who are giving you the money have.
Yep.
Okay? And so, if it doesn't, then they may feel they have met a need, or they have sought to meet a requirement, and yet they haven't. Do they take the time, the requisite time, to actually explain to people how they go about this business? These details that they're asking for, one understands very well. It's not complicated, but do they go through the processes of ensuring?
They haven't had sufficient
No,
time.
they don't. The
Because
simple answer is
ideally,
no.
this should have happened when the applicants were still in high school.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
During that time, so spend a year with, first of all, train the teachers, and then let the teachers go and explain to the students in school that this is what will be required. This is what they'll be looking out for. Because remember, some of those things that they're going to use, some of the matrices include, are you coming from a private school or a public school?
Public school.
There may
Do
be
your
a
parents
private
reside
school
in
that is
urban
actually
Kenya or rural
just a low-cost private school.
Bro, there are some private schools that are under the tree operation.
Yep.
And it's private because there's an individual who's determined to do it.
And it's just offering a service.
Yes.
Yeah.
So again, you appear like you are actually trying to solve a problem, and the truth of the matter is you couldn't be further from solving it. Yes.
That's very true. We'll look into that story a little bit more
Yeah,
to answer
yeah.
some of those questions. What Africa wants is on the front page of The Nation. After 3 days of intense discussions, the inaugural African Climate Summit has taken a huge leap of faith and is now seeking to assert the continent's strong voice in the resolution of global climate challenges to which it contributes the least. And led by President William Ruto, the African leaders were crystal clear on their demands to the West. So there's a nice picture there of African leaders surrounding President William Ruto as he made the final declaration. ODM party rebels pay hefty price as Raila cracks the whip. And again, we're looking at this deadline to the 7th of October to submit applications. And it's been extended by a month, you guys. Here we are making noise that, is there enough time? It was supposed to have closed by now. Okay.
Nikwambie Business Daily.
Please.
Okay, the main one in the Business Daily, inside the multi-billion-dollar deal at the Nairobi Climate Summit, and they then break down into the Africa Climate Summit deal book, several commitments and pledges that were made here. They look at all of them. 450 million shillings from UAE, $49 million. No, 49 million pounds from the UK project, 60 million euros, Germany debt swap with Kenya, $30 million US funding food security, $200 million climate asset management, and so on and so forth. Jeff Bezos' Earth Fund for locally led restoration in Africa pledged $22.8 million. And so on and
so forth.
So forth. The other headline, banks eat old giants lunch in stockbrokers' profit race. Bank-owned stockbrokers and investment banks have edged their standalone rivals in the profit race, riding on alternative revenue streams enabled by their parent companies at a time when traditional income from trading commissions has shrunk. All right. Ticker headlines, businesses cut selling on credit on surging defaults. Horticulture earnings rebound on stronger euro. Centum unit taps 2.9 billion shillings IFC loan for affordable homes. There's some interesting articles also inside that are not in the headlines. For example, there's an article here, an opinion piece written by a gentleman called William Maima. William Maima is a partner, senior partner in a law firm called Iseme, Kamau and Maima Advocate, IKM. And he says, allow salary payments in dollars to protect Kenyans from weak shilling. You get it?
Across the board?
Yes. He says, the solution lies in amending the law to allow for payment of salaries in any convertible currency of the party's choice. However, to ensure compliance with local tax obligations and earn the country some foreign exchange, payment should be made into a Kenyan bank account. So you say, just allow people to be paid in dollars or euros, in whatever someone wants. This month, my salary, I want it in euros.
In euros. Then give me...
Convert it and send it into my euro account at such and such a local bank. Where? SCT?
Yes, please.
The Star?
Yes. Headline, top right-hand corner. Remember once upon a time, there was this story about Mama Lucy and the child trafficking that was alleged to be resident therein. Remember?
Yes.
Well, pocketed 300,000. Ex-Mama Lucy hospital worker found guilty of child trafficking. People were arraigned in court. There's this particular gentleman who has now been found guilty. This is the story is on page 20 of the Star.
This was the BBC expose, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah. So now he can appeal, though. Yes, but for now...
For now, he's a convict.
For now, he's convicted.
He's a criminal.
Any criminal.
Okay.
Okay, now... Raila kicks out Ruto allies in radical purge. Interesting headline, this one.
Isn't it
I thought these were ODM MPs.
Yeah, the Ruto allies.
Yeah, but the ODM MPs.
Yeah, that's why they've been kicked out.
Yeah.
They were ODM MPs until yesterday.
Okay, sawa too. 3 MPs fined this amount that you mentioned earlier on. Let's move on. Employment Authority on the spot for failing to rein in rogue agencies. Remember, the agencies that are being spoken of are the agencies that have placements. The ones who take people abroad. Okay? The ones who find you jobs abroad. Yes. NEC is being blamed. They've been told, you're the one who's at fault. Okay?
Okay.
You're the ones who didn't train in these rogue agencies. Are they really rogue? What really happens in these stories? Because you hear one side of the story, then you hear the other. Seems to have balanced somewhere in between. And somewhere in between, there seem to be some rogue. How many agencies are there? How regulated are they? Do we know? Is the information regarding these agencies in the public domain? So we know what they do, how they do it. So that you can say, if you want to know about these agencies, just go to this particular link and you'll have all the information you want. How does this thing actually work?
Interesting question.
Okay, right. January. Now this is a rather shocking and gory story. 51 people disappeared or killed by cops in 6 months, says Lobby. This story is on page 2. Okay.
Disappeared or killed?
Yeah. Since what?
March this year.
Yes. 6 months.
Or
last
6 months.
Yes. Remember, we're told this was going to be a thing of the past, isn't it? It's very much a thing of the present, is it not?
Sounds like.
Sounds very much so.
Yeah.
But we will go into those details later.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's look at the traffic then. It's 24 minutes to 7, Kenya's biggest conversation. SA is asking whether there is a place where you can find all the proverbs. Actually, we'll start doing something like that.
Create an archive.
We'll create Ednah, right? We can create a playlist for just proverbs on YouTube, and then we'll just be finding all of them there.
Yes.
Sawa, that's a good one, SA. Thank you for asking. We take that into advisement.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start
few
your
minutes,
day.
we're actually right on 6:30 on the nose, and what's happening here? A little bit of movement here and there on the Thika Superhighway, and we're going to see that coming in towards the city. Kiambu Road not doing too badly right about now, and we'll probably see that pick up as we go closer to 7. Not probably, but for sure. Coming off of Uhuru Highway for the first time in many days, it's going to be clear through and through, at least for now. And what's happening on the northern bypass coming then through to Kiambu Road is moving. It's free. It's clear. There's a little bit of a hold up coming in from Lolongo out then towards onto Mombasa Road, and then it'll take you out towards Huru Highway, but then there you'll be all right. Still early pickings. Let's know what's going on where you are as we get closer to traffic hour. Let's speak on Spice FM KE on X.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
These are our demands, and we ask that they be followed, number one. We also know what we need to do. We're committed to doing that, but this is what we're asking you to do. So the 3-day Africa Climate Summit ended in Nairobi yesterday with a strong call for sweeping changes to global financing as leaders presented a wish list to major polluters, saying they must honor their past commitments and be ready to make new ones to curb the accelerating effects of climate change. In an equally strong voice led by President William Ruto, the leaders called for an overhaul of the world's debt financing system, including 10-year debt relief periods and options to renegotiate deals, which they said should tilt the scales in favor of a naturally endowed continent that pays up to 5 times more loans for loans on the global market. So what are we asking for in what is called the Nairobi Declaration? Number one, the concerns that the world is not on track to keeping within the reach of the 1.5 degrees centigrade limit that was agreed in Paris, that global emissions must be cut by 43% this decade. This decade is fast approaching in terms of its end. 1 billion is another number. African cities and urban centers are growing rapidly, and by 2050 would be home to over 1. 7 years. Only 7 years remain to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, and 600 million, another number, noted with concern that this is the number of people in Africa that still lack access to electricity. 970 million. It's noted that these lack access to clean cooking. When we say clean cooking, we're talking about the energy used to cook, right? The actions, $100 billion from the global north, should honor the commitment to provide this in the annual climate funding. COP27, swiftly operationalize the loss and damages facility that was agreed at COP27. It was agreed in November last year. We are now in September, and we're not even hearing. They're saying, do it and do it now. 2050, that's give or take some 27 years away. Call for climate positive investments that catalyzes a growth trajectory anchored in the industries poised to transform our planet and enabling African countries to achieve stable middle income status by 2050. That we should not have this business, of low, least developing, underdeveloping, etc.,
Yeah.
but try to see that every single African country is at that middle development. And one of the ways to do that is to make this financing equitable and equal across board. And we're saying by 2050, we should not be having these conversations that there's still somebody who is underdeveloping or least developing or starting to want to develop. No. Come on. And this index that you used to prescribe this, how about you fix the kinks in it? 2022 to 2032, the commitment to accelerate the implementation of the African Union Climate Change and Resilient Development Strategy, an action plan. So there's an action plan and they're saying implement the thing. Let us not meet again to see that some of the things that we've put in this Nairobi Declaration have not been implemented. That was the crux of it, you know?
Yeah.
And so there's two things. We're taking the lead on this thing that concerns us. And number two, we're asking you, who are the major polluters, to pay up and stop giving us wahala.
Pay. We want money. We want money. Problem is, if you just reduce that whole conversation into only money, then we may lose it.
That's the problem.
Yeah, because how much? Is
How much with our continent and money coming in, that one, different story.
Yeah.
Different story.
Yeah.
But we must really hail our president for daring to dream.
Oh, yes.
For daring to actually go beyond these set boundaries and saying, folks, this is the conversation we've been having, this conversation is not working. Sorry. We need Not another conversation. The conversation we need is this one.
This is our conversation.
Yes.
Yeah. This is what we're bringing to the table.
Yes, we've heard yours, we've listened. All this time we've been listening. And we're telling you this is how we see it.
Yep.
Yes.
And I think it's a big thing. Like we said, credit where it's due. On this one, William Ruto took it on up head on, and he was very clear. He's been very clear. Even up to yesterday, he's been very, very clear. This is our conversation. It's about payment. This is the kind of payment we're talking about. But it goes beyond that. Even on debt, and he's very big on that. You cannot come and pay us, and then you also lend us a lot of money, and you're charging us exorbitantly for that money.
You know,
And
he
yet
has a
we are-
point.
Yeah.
He has a point, because when you talk about grants, you talk about aid. One of the things that these things actually do is they promote the industries of the country that is actually giving you this money. People assume that when you're told you're being given money, it is
shillings that are coming.
Yeah, it's just coming
No.
by the truckload. No. There's equipment, there's personnel, there's all these things.
All those people are paid here,
Yes.
but their money goes back there.
Precisely. So this money that you're given, a lot of it ends up going back to where it's supposed to have come from. And what you get in terms of whether it's capacity building, which is something you not really very tangible sometimes. Yeah. So this conversation, we've had it long enough, and we've understood the West was looking after their own interest, while at the same time giving us the impression that they are giving us a helping hand. We have understood. Okay. Now, a little honest conversation. Okay, we're no longer children, so now let's
We
talk
can
as
see.
Now, let's now talk as adults, shall we? Please.
Absolutely.
Let's
And
discuss this.
I love to see it. And one of the things that President Ruto said at the onset of some of these talks is people looked at him and said, okay, seriously, what are you doing? I mean, is this our priority? And we start to see that actually, yes, it is. It is our priority, because what it does is that it opens the doors for many other conversations that are not working in terms of when Africans go to the negotiating table, not just on climate, but other things, how are we seen? And I think what it does is that it opens the door for then Africa and Africans to have a more bullish approach to some of these things, because we've been given the short end of the stick, not only because it's being given to us, but also because of the way in which we handle the conversations around this stick giving. And I think that what this does is that I think he's done a beautiful thing.
Remember
and he's
also,
allowed that door to be open.
there's this matter of funding, there's this matter of loans, okay? A sticky part of this conversation is this thing called interest. This preferential interest. How come we pay more than some other people?
This is true. Look at the example of Greece. Greece was not even on its knees. They were about to put the last heap of sand on the hole.
They were doing badly.
My God.
They were down.
They came in, they got this funding, they got a boost, they got aftercare support. Realize that. Until now, Greece is now saying, okay, here we are. We're still being able to color within the lines. How many times in the global south do you see that happening?
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that he was saying. You don't. If anything, you say, okay, let's give you more money, and rack up the interest. We're not going to come and hold your hand to make sure you succeed. And
Now,
this is
how
what
many
he's saying.
countries in Africa are under debt distress?
Yes.
We are countries that are facing default and exacerbated by COVID-19. During the COVID time, there was a whole conversation about, debt relief, debt lifting and all. But it didn't happen. It didn't happen. Now, those countries are still looking at us and saying, you develop faster, don't go for fossil fuel, blah, 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 this and the other, but you owe us. Countries are in distress.
They are.
This conversation must happen now.
And it must be an honest conversation. Because we do know that we have this tendency to use the monies that we are lent for other things other than that which we were supposed to use it for. We understand all that. But that having been said, some of these debts are very difficult to pay.
Yeah.
And that's the truth.
Why don't we have this conversation of something that is possible? Because by the time you're being lent because you've shown the ability to pay.
Yes.
Yes, and you have been paying. It's a loan, for heaven's sake. We understand loans. You're given, you pay. Okay? And you agree on how much you're going to pay. We get all that. But even more importantly, we should peg these loans, whoever it is who's giving us, to whatever it is they took from us, so that we deduct that one first.
We also deduct, yes. Should be an exchange.
Yes, because if you talk about colonialism, there's this thing called opportunity cost. What did colonialism benefit us with? Fine. But what else did they disadvantage us with? You can monetize that one. I'm simply saying, if you're going to have an honest conversation, it isn't that we've given you money, pay. No, it isn't that. There's a much, much larger conversation when it comes to this. Otherwise, it is not an honest conversation.
It isn't.
Yes. The very economies that we're talking about, which are referred to as the West, they built those economies on the backs of these so-called third world countries.
Yes, no.
That is how it is.
They did.
It. Yes.
They did. And nobody can dispute that. They did.
Even they can't dispute it. The only countries that can escape it are those Nordic countries. But them, they built it on the back of
their own people.
Their own
They colonized people in Europe. They not just colonized them, they plundered people in Europe.
Yes.
They didn't come here, but they did the same thing.
You know, it's like when people talk about slave trade, they forget that there's a transatlantic slave trade.
Yeah.
Okay? There are so many conversations that are not had and which are real. And this climate change conversation, I think, has opened that door. And more honest conversations must be had. Yes.
We must look back.
It's very good.
Hi, Worldcoin.
His eyes are still paining them.
The other people went to Parliament and told MPs, you know, me since that day, by the way, my eyes have not stopped tearing.
Sioni
vizuri.
Can't see a thing.
Like, I'm just seeing hazy. Naona marudurudu.
Oh, that's what it is. I learn new things every day.
Marudurudu. Yeah. Yesterday, the boss of Worldcoin was before MPs. His name is the CEO and founder of Tools for Humanity. That's the initiator of the Worldcoin project. His name is Alex Blamier. He told an ad hoc committee of the National Assembly investigating the company's operations that they were registered as a data collector in Kenya. He says they went to the Data Protection Commissioner. They applied for a license to operate in the country. And he says in mid-April 2022, we engaged the Office of the Data Commissioner to explain what we were doing. The data impact assessment was done, and within 2 weeks, we submitted our documents for registration. Now, here is a bit of an issue. The Companies Act in Kenya says that no foreign company shall operate in Kenya unless it is registered in Kenya. Okay? So there has to be a Kenyan registered operation. But he says his operation in the country did not require compliance with that company's law. So this Worldcoin and TFH, Tools for Humanity, does not have a Kenyan company.
So they can't be here in operation?
They are not registered here. He says, I was looking at the data protection law. The data protection law does not say that an applicant must be a Kenyan company. Can only be a Kenyan company.
Yeah.
Okay? So me, I applied. I'm not a Kenyan company.
And I got.
So all those stories you're telling me now, those are different. Okay? Under the Office of the Data Protection website, it's not a requirement to be locally registered under the Business Registration Service to be a data collector. That's what he says. This is the information. This is the law that you people made. The Data Commissioner is here. The Data Commissioner has posted the requirements. None of those requirements says that I must be registered with the BRS in Kenya. So I did not register with BRS in Kenya, and I was given the license. He told the MPs that the data mined in the country is not monetized, explaining that all personal and biometric data is securely stored in servers either in the USA, in South Africa, or in the European Union. Hiyo macho yetu yote iko America, iko South Africa, iko EU. Neither Tools for Humanity nor the Worldcoin Foundation will ever sell users' personal or biometric data. A person's free and informed consent is always secured before the processing of their personal data. The documents presented to the committee indicated that to date, the company has invested over 700 million shillings in Kenya. The investments focused on blockchain and cryptocurrency education and ICT awareness.
So how do they arrive at this 700 million?
See how much they've spent.
How do we know that's what they've spent? I mean, that's what they've said.
They presented those documents. Project X, it cost us 20 million.
Okay, were those documents verified?
Then paying people this money.
Yeah.
Now it's the work of Parliament now to verify whether those documents are real or not.
Did Parliament ask them questions as per, even one question. What exactly does this thing you are doing entail? You know, my father used to say, if you are doing business,
what does this thing of yours do?
What is it? What did they ask them? My father used to say, you said you are doing business. Let's see the thing you are doing. What are you selling? Are you selling something?
What are you buying?
Are you making something? Are you buying something? What exactly are they doing? Because you cannot tell me you put your eye and it means nothing, it's innocent, everything is okay.
No.
Then they give you money.
They've said that their business is collecting data.
You see, part of this 700 million could be the giving of money. It is awareness.
For what?
See, awareness for ICT and cryptocurrency.
Meaning when you get the money, you're aware you've been given money.
Yeah.
No.
Cryptocurrency.
The eye picture.
Yes.
What is it for?
But also...
ICT awareness.
ICT.
Yes. ICT.
Yeah.
But also think about it for a single second. If you are a data collection company, to what end? Data is not collected for its own sake. No.
They're not a data collection company.
What are they registered as?
They are the Worldcoin Foundation. I put search Worldcoin Foundation up or go to one.
See, what you read, I'm going by what you read. They are registered in Kenya as...
No, they applied for registration as a data collector.
Yeah,
right? And data collector, for example, the Standard Group is registered as a data collector because we collect people's data. It's not because that's our business. A hotel must be registered as a data collector because they collect data.
Yes.
As long as you are collecting data, you're supposed to register with the office of the
I've got that.
data of the blah, blah, blah.
But beyond collecting data, Standard Group does other things as well.
So then
they're
they
registered also as those other things as well.
This is what they are. And now read.
Worldcoin is designed to become the world's largest privacy-preserving human identity and financial network, giving ownership to everyone. Worldcoin aims to provide universal access to the global economy, no matter your country or background, establishing a place for all of us to benefit in the age of AI.
This is gobbledygook.
Isn't it just? Let me tell you, I
What is
smell
this?
Kama uelewe kizungu ni sawa bwana.
a big, fat, smelling
This,
rat.
what? This?
No. Worldcoin is a crypto.
Bro, this is elephant dung. This thing. Read it and see if it makes sense to you.
Hey.
This. Yes, read. What is
Let
that?
me tell you, this thing is smelling like a rat.
Scroll
Like
down.
a
Scroll
rat.
down.
Learn more for a human internet.
No. Go and continue. No.
World app for access to the global economy, the thinking, ideas, and technology behind a more human economic system.
Yes.
I'm actually now leaning towards CT's gobbledygook because what is that?
Yeah.
What is that? It's smelling
Do you understand
like
crypto?
a rat. It's virtual currency.
Blockchain.
Virtual currency.
I understand. It's internet money.
Yeah.
Now that internet
Which
money.
means it can either exist or not exist.
Somebody can wake up today and say, actually, you know what? Crypto is dead.
And that's the end of that crypto.
Yeah.
Because
That's
how do you determine value?
Just like a central bank can decide to print money and then you have a 5 million shilling
You
note.
are absolutely right, Eric. It's the same as fiduciary issue. And the reason why it is valuable is because we trust. We are the ones who give it value. It doesn't have intrinsic value in and of itself.
It's
Not
just like
really.
diamonds. Somebody picked a rock out of the ground and said, okay, this thing is shiny, and we are going to say it's valuable.
It's very hard,
Or
very
somebody's
good.
picked a piece of shiny material and then decides
It's
we're
called
gonna call
gold.
it gold, and then we're going to trade it on the global market, and we're going to say this thing is valuable, and we're going to get more and more people to talk about it being valuable. Meanwhile, you did what? You picked material out of the ground. And you
didn't
decided,
invent it.
No, you didn't.
It was there.
You decided it had high value. And everybody came and contributed, because that's exactly how it works. Everybody came and contributed to this conversation, and you began to weigh it. And then you began to assign value to it. And then you began to say that as you move on, the value is going to increase because of 1, 2, 3. And all this economic activity then will be pegged to the value of this. You've heard of something, it's worth its weight in gold? It's because somebody decided that this thing, because it's shiny and I can make things out of it, ornaments.
Now
that
that's
is
the same thing
valuable.
that's now
It's the
happening
same
with the
thing
cryptocurrency.
crypto.
Okay? And the AI world. Now these guys are running ahead and saying, all right, so how do we create and enhance that transparency and allow for anybody to access it? You come up with that? What foundation?
Worldcoin Foundation.
Worldcoin Foundation.
However, my brother,
Is that not the same narrative we've heard with these people who are giving people placements? You're being sent to the Middle East and you're just in Kenya. You never moved, and as
They
far as
just
you're
say, bring
concerned,
money, your
and
placement
you
is
paid
coming.
money, it's coming.
your placement is coming.
No,
It's
in
like
fact, the
heaven-
next
like
month, 6 months later,
heavenly
till next
aspiration.
month.
What we'll do is we are looking for this Alex Blania man.
Yes.
No, let him
Come
come
here,
and explain
co-founder and confound our...
He needs to make the connection between
macho na pesa.
Yes. Macho.
That's it.
Macho being one eye. Two eyes being macho.
So let's look for the guy, Ednah. Look for this one. City.
Chemelil Moroni Sugar Millers merge plan split stakeholders. Now, this one, let me just give a
Read the headline again.
Yes.
Pole pole. You are a Mohoroni sugar farmer.
Yes, this one, a disclaimer. Yeah. This one, I'm already biased. Even as I read it, be knowing.
Declaration of interest.
Yes, I am biased, and I'm going to continue that bias.
All right.
Chemelil Moroni Sugar Millers merge plan split stakeholders. Okay, memorandum came from Treasury. Said government is keen to attain viable cane catchment sizes. See again, Gobblegook, and ensure the sustainability of operations of the ailing companies. Okay,
those two.
Yes,
Chemelil Sugar Company and Moroni.
So yes, it's like when they're standalone, they are not viable. So you merge them.
Yes.
Okay, that is not true. It's not true at all.
That's not true.
What's not true? That if they're standing alone and they're not working well, if you merge them, they'll do better.
Yes.
That thought is not true.
That thought is not true.
Okay.
That thought is not true because when these factories were set up, remember that sugarcane, that belt, okay? There's Moroni, there's Chemelil, there's Miwani, and then there's Kibos now, okay? How is it that Kibos functions? Functions quite well, but it's a private miller sugar company.
Okay.
Miwani died a long time ago. Okay. No, it actually died. Okay. Even the factory itself is rusted. If you pass by there, you'll see it is rusted. Moroni and Chemelil keep limping, but it's the same story of factories that were actually subsidized by the government, because the sugar industry in this country, in reality, is actually not viable if the government doesn't support it.
Yeah.
The economies of scale don't work in our favor.
But you just said Kibos is working.
No, Kibos is working.
Without subsidy.
No, without subsidy. And the reason why it's working without subsidy is because Kibos has actually understood the business. When I say they've understood the business, it means there's nothing from that cane that goes to waste. Nothing. Not bagasse, not. They long understood that this white thing that we think is valuable called sugar is the least. Yes.
Yeah. Let's continue this one shortly. Do you have news, Ednah? Is she here? Okay.
Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru.
Good morning, this is the News Wire. I'm Leah Obaga. Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union is now calling on the government to hire more workers at public health centres if it aims to improve health services in the country through the new health insurance fund. Led by union official Kizito Sisanya, the workers have also asked the government to explain how the 2.75% fund they'll collect will be utilised to avoid corruption cases that have been experienced with NHIF.
So we are planning to collect money, but we don't know how much. I'm planning to spend it. Try cost it, because if you look at the systems that work, they have an amount they have costed, what it will go to, and then you share it out also. When you share out the monies, because people have a tendency to take it to infrastructure, to brick and mortar, and to tenders.
On his part, Medical Services PS Harry Kimtai says that the charges can be revised if Kenyans feel they should, as the deduction of 2.75% is aimed at benefiting Kenyans from all walks of life.
There is nothing that is fixed, and that's why in law we provide for amendments. The proposed 2.75% is currently, but as you are saying, we are coming up with the legislations to bring everybody on board. And if you bring everybody on board, there's always you'll enjoy what's called economics of scale, because everybody is contributing.
The Ministry of Health is expected to meet with the Council of Governors today and gather their views on the bill. Students applying for government scholarships and loans now have until the 7th of next month. This comes after Education CS Ezekiel Moshogu said the extension aims to provide eligible students with ample time to apply and ensure no one is left out due to the high demand for the government funding in higher education. Kisumu Senator Toma Jienda and Langata Member of Parliament Felix Odior Elias Jalango have broken their silence after being expelled from the Orange Democratic Movement Party. The two were among 5 perceived rebel party members shown the door by the political outfit's National Executive Committee. The others were MPs Elisha Odhiambo of Gem, Gideon Ochanda of Bondo, and Karoli Omondi of Suba South. Ojenda and Jalango took to social media to react to the news, with the Kisumu senator claiming his expulsion was due to his working relationship with President William Ruto. The Supreme Court will deliver its ruling on the appeal filed by Busia Senator Okoh Omtata against the controversial Finance Act 2023 tomorrow. Registrar of the Supreme Court, Letsia Washira, made the revelation via communication to Omtata dated September 4th. Omtata and the 3 others filed their application at the Apex Court last month, seeking to set aside orders of the Court of Appeal that reinstated the provisions of the Finance Act 2023. Chief Justice Martha Koome has said independent institutions have encroached on the terrain reserved for the judiciary and the Judiciary Service Commission, posing challenges in facilitating the administration of justice. Justice Koome further said that the Judicial Fund was not operating optimally due to bureaucratic bottlenecks and roadblocks erected by the Controller of Budget. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
All right, so coming in through after 7 o'clock, and we're still looking at traffic in different parts of the city this morning. Looking pretty busy as you're coming off the Thika Superhighway, and likely to continue for some time, bumper to bumper, through and through. All right, so also looking at traffic coming in from Gong Road, a little bit of it here and there. Jogo Road is very busy, and I think we'll see the last of it. Folks leaving Nairobi today, outward traffic on Uhuru Highway is also starting to look like a thing if you're not using the expressway. Apart from that, we haven't really gotten into it yet. Let's look at it when we do. Spice FM KE on X as we keep things moving this morning.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
How are you doing? Welcome to the second hour of the Situation Room. This is Kenya's biggest conversation on this Thursday, the 7th day of September 2023. Also, welcome everybody who's joining us now on KTN Home. We've been here on Spice FM and on YouTube and Facebook. And CT has the day's proverb.
I actually do. Yes. A young person who travels a lot is older than the old who stayed in the village.
A young person who travels a lot is older than the old person who stays in the village.
Yes, exactly.
This is from Gabon.
This is from Gabon. Age here is being categorized, or no, let me start again. The concept of age in this particular proverb is being used as a determinant of experience. If you travel, you will see and experience a lot more. If you stay in the village, you'll experience the same thing over and over again. Yes. So we're talking diversity.
So you're none the wiser.
Yes, not really. Yes, you're just wise in the ways of the village. Yes.
Okay.
But the younger person is wise in the ways of the village somewhat, but
Plus
also
other
wise
places.
plus other places. Yes.
Other experiences and all,
Yes.
they contribute.
Yes.
Makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense.
It does make sense.
Yes.
So there's a headline that has irked you a little bit.
It has.
Chemelil Muhoroni Sugar Millers merger plan splits stakeholders.
Yes.
Start with the story.
Stories like this, huh?
Yes.
A proposal by Treasury to merge Chemelil and Muhoroni sugar companies has elicited mixed reactions. I am part of that mix, as the government embarks on a new trajectory to revamp the once vibrant state-owned factories. Now, what the government seeks to do is this. They're saying, for these factories to be viable, they need a minimum cane catchment, meaning the area where this cane is planted, to be 29,914 hectares. That is the proposal. That should be the minimum. Minimum kabisa.
Okay.
Now, as things happen, Chemelil only has 18,487. Muhoroni has 22,084 hectares.
Right. Okay.
All right? Now, it makes sense because if you look at Nzoia has 49,862. Sony has 31,515. So at that point, you say, if that is what you're using as for example, it makes perfect sense.
Yes.
And these ones, they say, can function independently. Then comes in Miwani Sugar Factory, which they're also saying can function independently once it's revamped. But Miwani Sugar Company only has a catchment of 9,143. So this yardstick you're using already eco default.
Yep.
So this one of Miwani will be merged with the Chemelil and Muhoroni?
No, it will be leased, but it will operate independently.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So they're saying that if you're looking at this particular logic, it's like you're saying that the non-viability of these factories was due to the size of land that it had available for planting cane. And when you heard me raising my voice, I was saying, no, it's not true. It is not the only reason. It is not the only reason. Planting sugarcane and growing sugarcane the way we do in Kenya economically is actually not viable. Let me repeat it again. It is not viable. If the government doesn't intervene, we cannot actually even compete on the world stage.
What kind of interventions are we talking about here that it needs? So what's the current situation in terms of how cane is grown in Kenya today vis-a-vis what needs to happen in order for it to be viable?
Okay, let's look at Kenana. This is in Sudan here. Yes, Sudan. Here. You see where I'm pointing?
I can see.
Okay, yes.
Right.
That sugar factory is fully mechanized. And if you had all the sugar factories in Kenya, all, and put them in one place, they don't even feature to be a fraction of what they have. I'm talking economies of scale.
Okay.
Now, if you look at the sugar plantations in Brazil and other places, size alone, so economies of scale, 1. 2, what they use the cane for is not to produce the sugar that we had in our tea. No. It's used for fuel.
Yes.
The extract, the bagasse, it's used again for fuel. Meaning, in that same factory, this very waste is again utilized as fuel to run that very same factory. What I'm saying is, the government factories that we have, Muhoroni, Chemelil, didn't do that. Them, they existed to produce white sugar. Now that, yes, at some point then the game changed. So you then had agrochemical next to Muhoroni, which then use some of that produce to produce alcohol, which is used for methylated spirit, blah,
Yes.
blah, blah, and so forth. I'm saying the government-run factories are not viable so long as what they were doing before is what they're doing.
So what intervention do you then need from the government?
The intervention that the government needs is to stop talking about hectares alone and to ask what is it that makes a viable sugar factory, because Kibos is just in that same constituency. It's a privately owned factory and it's viable. What are they doing? I am saying the merger seems to focus on the size of land needed to be able to make them viable. I'm saying that is not the entire story.
Okay.
Yes.
It may not be the entire story.
Yes.
But is it possible to be part of the story?
No.
If we say that we merge them, then you get this expanded acreage.
Yes.
And then you do all those other things. Would it help?
The expanded...
Conversely,
yes.
If we say that you just leave Muhoroni the way it is right now and you leave Chemelil the way they are right now and you operate them separately, would it make sense? You just give us the example of Sudan, economies of scale. It makes them work better.
Yes.
What's wrong with these ones? If we say let's merge these two, okay? and then we have a bigger catchment area of where we're getting our sugar cane from, where raw material from.
Yes.
And then we also work on the efficiency of the operations.
Yes.
Such that we are producing more, we are getting more products out of it.
Okay. Let's even start.
What's wrong with that whole...
These factories are over 60 years old, many of them. They are ancient, old, they are actually outdated. So step number one, the things I'm talking about cannot actually be done with the factories as they currently are. You need to change those factories and revamp them, make them new.
Okay.
What you suggest could actually work, because our sugar is produced to be consumed locally. We don't really export sugar. If anything, what we produce is inadequate. That's why we have to keep importing. There's a quota that has to be imported. But that quota is misused, and what gets imported sometimes is even more than what is produced locally.
Right.
And what is produced locally is hampered by not just the inefficiencies, but the misdeeds that occur in that industry. Every time these factories have been put under receivership, for some strange reason, they seem to function. The moment they're taken back to the so-called regular management, they dip again. What I'm saying is, as you talk about acreage, it can't be the only story you're talking about, because you haven't even explained how it is the acreage that they have been optimally utilized for it to be inadequate. That has not been said. And these factories are older than the other factories you're talking about. Probably one is older than the other two.
So then obviously the issue of revamping comes into play.
Yes.
And
rethinking the whole thing, not just revamping it.
Because now you're talking about a product. It's because cane is not sugar. From what you've said, sugar is a byproduct of the cane.
Yes.
And there are other things which, if you look at on a grander scale, Kenya could actually be benefiting from quite significantly if now that was actually focused on. In order to derive these benefits from cane and to do it on a large scale, that realization has to come about, clear in the minds of everybody, even if assuming in some that it is not. Number two, you also have to see the benefits on a global level. Now, global doesn't mean necessarily the world, but global means overall. Here, seeing what can all of these companies that exist in the country today actually do with what they have. The possibility of Kenya providing all its sugar needs, as well as export needs, export quota, and not just for sugar, but for the energy that comes from it, etc., is there. The possibility is there.
It's there.
The realization of using what you have to get there, I think, is where now the sticking happens. And now when you mix it in this lovely pot of mismanagement and impunity and corruption, you have a fantastic recipe for disaster, which we've already experienced.
Mumias actually got there. Mumias went even beyond just gasohol. Mumias were producing power. Meaning, they did a complete 360.
Yep.
Okay. And then God alone knows what happened, and things went left and right and up and down, and we are where we are today.
They did another 360.
Yes. Look at Butali Sugar. I mean, just look at factories which are private and they work. Part of the reason why they work is that their catchment area, forget their own land. Independent cane farmers like yours truly here would rather sell his cane to Kibos, which will pay you less, but they'll pay you quicker. See? So all I'm saying is, this whole industry needs to be rethought, not just retooled, revamped, rethought. It's one of those cash crops that benefited the Mwananchi. It's not like coffee or tea, which is actually an export crop. No. This one, the Mwananchi who grows it benefited directly from it.
So can the problems being faced today and the problems that have been historically faced then be pegged completely to mismanagement?
Yes.
Completely?
Yes.
Okay.
Because
in terms of awareness of what can actually be done, that's clear. Because you see examples of, like you talked about, the gas being created, energy, fuel, etc., People have done it, so the awareness is not the problem. Again, we come down to mismanagement. So it comes down to a thing of, if you really want to, you will do something with this thing.
The moment you have sugar factories and people who grow cane benefiting from it, and you can see what it is that is done, what needs to be done is known. It's not in the realm of the unknown. That's really what I am saying.
But why is it that this conversation always keeps coming back?
Yeah.
Even last week when the president was in Western Kenya, the sugar conversation dominated everything.
Because it is one of the few cash crops that those regions have where farmers actually used to benefit directly from.
Okay, so why aren't they benefiting? So many years, many government bailouts and all.
The factories died. This mismanagement was actually theft. Because
it allowed them to die.
For the longest time, even when you were told that the factory has a problem, you did not find mountains of sugar that hadn't been sold. All the sugar was always sold. Whatever was produced was sold. And yet, you grow cane, 18 months it's harvested. You wait another 2 years before you're paid. Man, in between you're going to die. If that's what you're depending on. The reason why farmers stopped growing cane, people like myself, is for that reason. It's a complete waste of your time.
You don't make something out of it. City.
If you do the maths, once upon a time you used to. Now, you wouldn't.
Would you support a plan to privatize these companies?
Yes, I would. But the privatization must give the independent farmers a stake in that privatization. Meaning, because we have land, our land is the equity, they must have a say in that privatization. That I would support.
So the company should be owned by the farmers?
Yes, it should be owned. If there's an investor wants to come in, they will have their share. But the farmer who also has land will also have a share in that.
So they'll have a shareholding?
Yes, they will have a shareholding.
Minority or majority?
Of necessity, it will be a minority.
Okay.
But it's a shareholding.
So bring in a private investor.
Yes.
Give them majority shareholding in this. They invest in modernizing this factory.
Completely.
Invest in modernizing the operations.
Yes.
Engage the minority shareholder who's a farmer to grow the cane.
Yes, exactly.
So the outgrowers are part of owners.
Yes,
of this.
yes. Once upon a time they were actually.
Okay.
Yes.
So what is the current plan? I feel like this is a matter that's before the Finance Committee of the National Assembly that is pleading stakeholders such as farmers and others. And it's based on a memorandum by the National Treasury.
Yes.
On what they say, okay, maybe this could be the blueprint for making Muhoroni and Chemelil work. One of the things is let's merge them so that we are basically merging the catchment and make the outgrowers of this and the outgrowers of this contribute to this one big company. Not necessarily meaning that we close down Chemelil and only operate Muhoroni. It could be operate both but under one entity. But then do we know the details of this memorandum?
No, we don't know the details. So I am fighting what I'm reading.
You just
yes,
saw
I saw this one.
Merger.
I said, forget it. By the way, Muhoroni and Chemelil are just neighbors. They merge into each other.
It's just the word merger.
That one.
You're not alone.
No, it spells doom.
Your MP for Muhoroni, Onyango Koyo, says the government should instead think of replacing the old machinery and embrace modern farming methods to turn around the fortunes of the turbulent industry. Instead of what? Instead of merging.
We have, this country is a beautiful country in many ways. There is a research unit for the sugar industry.
Yeah.
It's a very lucrative research unit. And believe me, if we did the work we do in the sugar industry based on what they do, others do, by the way. Some of these private companies, they do. They know cane, which doesn't need 18 months to grow. Some a year, some even 8 months. The one which produces high yield in sugar. They know all these things. Now that's modernizing, making sure that your process is informed by data, it's informed by research. But that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. The whole process of you grow your cane, it's harvested, you wait for a check. It is a tedious process.
Stories.
I'm interested in, because we heard this story all the time, that people would borrow money even to plant the cane. The cane is harvested and then taken to the millers.
Yes.
In terms of waiting for payment, it would take, it would take yonks. You pay back the loan by some other means. You were banking on the cane for many things, school fees, etc., etc. What was the problem that was not seeing cane farmers being paid after they took their cane to the miller? Because, like you said, you would never go to millers and find huge heaps of sugar sitting there.
No, you wouldn't.
Right?
Yes.
Because we know that the bulk of the sales from cane was in sugar.
You prepay for your sugar.
Right.
You don't come on the day that you want sugar and you pay.
Yeah, what I'm saying
it's
is
not retail.
Yeah, what I'm saying is we know for a fact that the bulk of the money that came from cane was not in biogas. It was not in energy. It was in sugar. You would not go to the millers and find heaps of sugar.
No.
So that means that they were selling it.
Yes.
So why then were farmers not being paid and paid on time?
That's where the mismanagement that we often, that the name mismanagement that is actually a pseudonym for corruption comes in. And the reason why I'm huffing and puffing is because I know over time when these smallholder sugar farmers, with that 2.5 acres, 5 acres, and so forth, were taking not only the children to school, but they're able to make a living out of it because it was harvested, the fertilizer was brought on time, you got your check on time, everything worked. And if you needed an advance, like in Tamu, there used to be an office for Musoko, which is the circle for the sugarcane farmers. You could go there and apply. Within a week, you'd have your check because they understood your acreage. They knew what you are likely to get, meaning it was organized. It's against this background that you hear me saying what I'm saying. I saw it working.
So then,
I witnessed it working.
But you're fighting any idea of reviving.
Then I'm
fighting a half-baked idea which is being reported half-baked. I'm not hearing a wholesome way of reviving the industry. I'm not hearing it.
I'm inclined to agree with CT because they've seen this thing work. They've seen it work without this merging or whatever.
Without all these many new stories,
And why did it work at the time that it worked? Because the management, or at least for a period of time, then was end to end.
Yes, it was.
And it was proper. And people were being paid when they were supposed to be paid. People were then able to reverse the cycle. We're not dealing with issues like infertility of the land. It's the sugar belt, for crying out loud. The land is fertile. We can continue to grow this thing. It works. There is obviously a problem. We can do better, value-added services, etc., etc. But we're trying to not make the bed and put a blanket on top of it without dealing with the problem that lies underneath. So merging the 2 or 3 or how many ever would be great because you have more acreage and you can do whatever you need to. But that's not the core problem.
If you have the same problems that you've had and you merge them, what will have changed?
You have a bigger problem.
Nothing will have changed. I'm saying, if there is, and Eric, you have a valid point in that we don't know the full story. We haven't read the entire memorandum. So the person in this ministry of Treasury, we will look for them and come so that they can come and explain what this plan is. But my knee-jerk reaction when I read this, forget about it. That thing, nope.
It doesn't.
No.
It doesn't.
It
seems the local MP is also unaware. Because when the local MP appeared before this, he said, instead of telling us about merger, you should be telling us about replacing the old machinery, embracing modern farming methods, and turn around the fortunes. The local MCA for Miwani, Geoffrey Morindu, says the proposed merger is of no consequence, while when more than 70,000 acres of land continue to lie fallow.
Yes.
We are concerned that thousands of people will lose their jobs while a single entity could exploit farmers by setting lower prices of cane. That's if you merge those two, then they operate under one, then...
What you've done, you've merged all the nonsense that was in both those factors into one. And if the farmer was being disadvantaged, how do you explain a situation where farming, which was intended to benefit you, now becomes a net loss-making enterprise, and you're guaranteed poverty if you're a sugarcane farmer? How does that work? Why would you bother going into it?
Of course you wouldn't.
People like City Muga are not growing cane because it's a net loss making.
Yours is one of the 70,000 acres that are lying fallow.
Yes.
I think what I was hoping to hear from the local leaders is this is our blueprint. And then compare it with this is the Treasury proposal, this is our proposal, and we say no, amend this and this and this. And you, as a committee, Kuria Kimani's Committee of Planning in the National Assembly, take this to the House.
Eric,
and say this is what we want.
The areas who grow cane have come up with those blueprints many times. Just let me explain to you.
And then?
They have. Nothing happened. I'm telling you, it's not just Moroni, it's Nzoia. All these, the people who represent people in those areas have discussed these things before and said, folks, this is what we'd like you to do.
Because it was just a blueprint,
yes.
And it was not actually it was not a plan of action. It was like, okay, let's do the swanky thing and make it look as though we know what we're doing. But you don't take the blueprint and you don't apply any action to it, and then you don't have any mechanisms for implementation. It looks good on paper, it's zero in action.
But they've implemented. That's why we've seen so much money going into the sugar sector from the government.
Eric, throwing money at something
bailout, the other
Throwing
bailout.
money at something
it's
is
not
not
throwing money at an
implementation.
empty thing. It is throwing money at what has been presented. Oh, this is
Now,
our
imagine
blueprint.
people
Okay, so how
are-
much do you need? 20 billion shillings.
Imagine
to
people are
pour.
siphoning money because that's a mismanagement we're talking about. So now what do? You now
blueprints being
bring
prepared,
them much more money to siphon
If criminals prepare
without
blueprints,
without lines as to where that money is supposed to go. The same thing will continue happening. Same thing will continue happening. You just now, in fact, you now inject it, siphoning with power foam,
The
and now make
demand
it
for
proper.
sugar in this country is not in doubt.
it isn't.
It's not.
Yes. So how is it then that the sugarcane farmer is a poor person?
And as we see, the private sector comes in and the private sector does.
Well, yes. So
Very
how?
well.
Yes. Yes. So
Very
so-
well. So there are times here when there's no sugar and you have the neighbors here in Somalia now bringing sugar and it's just going everywhere. How do you explain that? And then it comes in packages of your local sugar companies.
No, there's
Come on.
Nimikora.
Hey, Bana. Let's just say it as it is.
Nimikora. This thing, I don't know. Every time there's a conversation, let's privatize these companies. No, we cannot privatize the company.
And the reason is because every time you hear privatization, look at the African Tours and Hotels, which was a parastatal, which was owned by ICDC.
Yes.
What became of it? They had some of the swankiest, some of the best hotels and lodges in the country. What happened? Collapsed, they were bought. What happened? Moribund, meaning at best it has some life-supporting equipment attached to it. A privatization discussion in this country, unfortunately, has a very morbid history. And every time that conversation is had, it means there are people who already planned how they want to own these entities and make money from it, because there is evidence that there's money to be made. It has nothing to do with the farmer.
They don't want to make money through it. They want to just strip it and bleed it dry.
Make money.
That's it.
They want to, yeah.
Because privatization, where you're taking up something to make a profit out of it, you will invest in it.
Let me tell you something else
You'll
about
make it
these
work.
factories.
You will care.
Forget the outgrower. These factories own land. A lot of it.
Lots of land.
So even if that factory is dead and buried, that land has value.
Yes.
A lot of value.
Yep.
Okay? So, if you're figuring out or you're trying to figure out what exactly is going on, just do the maths.
It's a bad manners that we all have.
It's a 1+1 situation.
It's who we are. We talk about now privatizing East Africa Portland Cement.
Yeah,
That's the same thing.
Same story.
It's a real estate company.
Yes.
It's no longer a cement manufacturing company. It's
no.
just
That's not the
looking at
discussion.
it as real estate. Okay,
Yes.
so how much land do they have within a very, very viable area?
Exactly. Very lucrative. And lots of it. Talking 18,000 hectares. How much land do you think that is?
For goodness sake.
Land. That's a lot of land. Anyway, shall we take a break? Let's take a quick break. It's 29 minutes after 7. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room, with Eric Latiff, Okoh, CT Muga. You're stepping into a meeting.
Yes, please.
You, Bwana, this meeting.
I know, but what to do?
You've become a councillor.
Kajra.
So let me worry. Are you?
Shungoje 2027.
2027.
Umeanza campaign mapema.
Mapema sana.
That's the spirit, man. You start early.
Watakuita tanga
We know what the early bird catches, don't we?
Tumepewa kazi tufanye hapa, wengine wanatangatanga.
Tanga.
and you saw what happened to that one, didn't you?
Oh, tangatanga worked. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Unright. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
You think you can guess the year?
2007. That's when the theme song, that's when it premiered for the James Bond movies.
You're half correct. But in terms of guessing the year?
Okay, if not 2007, then 1963.
Oh, now you're just throwing things, eh? You're throwing the sufria and everything outside.
The Spice Drive. Big hair and the biggest hits from the best decade.
Sunny conditions in Nairobi. It's 15 degrees, highs of 26 and lows of 14. We'll see highs of 26 and lows of 12 in a mostly cloudy Nakuru, and highs of 25 and 14, the low in a sunny Nyeri. It's 14 and cloudy in Eldoret, highs of 22 and lows of 12, and at 24, Mombasa is mostly sunny sunny, highs of 30 and lows of 23, and we'll see lows of 24 in a sunny Malindi, going to highs of 29. At 18, we're looking at cloudy conditions in Kisumu, highs of 27, and we'll see highs of 26 in a cloudy Kakamega at 17. Kampala's raining this morning at 18, highs of 28 and lows of 17, and we'll see lows of 24 in Dar es Salaam, where it's sunny, going to highs of 31. 8 degrees and clear in Johannesburg, highs of 25, and mostly clear at 24 in Lagos with highs of 30 and lows of 24. 23 will be the low in a mostly clear Kinshasa, going to highs of 34.
Spice up your life.
Okay, so into traffic hour, according to the clock, what does it look like on the roads? Movement on the Thika Superhighway coming in towards Muranga Road. That's already pretty busy right now. And we're looking at Kiambu Road, very busy, bumper to bumper through towards Muthaiga Square. Limuru Road is starting to pack up, and we're seeing Uhuru Highway busy as well. Are you coming in from Westlands? It's not too bad because you're all right all the way through towards the Westlands roundabout, and then it gets a little bit sticky there. Naivasha Road, Gong Road, Gitanga Road, all with a little bit of traffic here and there. Thursday morning looks like it's going to be quite busy. And we're also looking at movement right around Southfield Mall. It's coming in from Cabanas, going out towards the Eastern Bypass and Outer Ring, right? That's what it looks like getting into traffic hour. Let's see what happens closer to 8. And we talk on Spice FM KE on X.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
The news for the next 27 minutes is Erica Ndu. City has stepped out to go and tanga a little bit. She'll be back. He will be back in the next hour. Something happened yesterday. Big thing.
Yes. People
Political
were told.
party sanity. This is it.
NEC, National Executive Committee of the ODM party, said what? This is the whip. Let's crack it on rebels with expulsions and hefty fines. You don't just come and do anyhow here and we just keep quiet. So what were these transgressions? Let me give you a little bit from that story. It's a legal battle that they say is brewing after ODM expelled 5 rebel legislators, as they call them, for violating the party's constitution by going against the resolutions and associating them with the ruling Kenya Kwanza Alliance. The move to tame the rebels follows a National Executive Committee meeting chaired by party leader Raila Odinga. Now, the MPs, Elisha Odhiambo from GIM, Carolee Omondi, Suba South, Gideon Ochanda, Bondo, and Felix Odiwar Langata, as well as Kisumu Senator Tom Agenda, are expected to appeal the decision because, hey man, we want to stay. What is this? And we don't feel that what we did was wrong. If we did anything for that matter. The party also resolved to revoke the nominations of 4 Kisumu members of the County Assembly, Caroline Opar, Kennedy Ajwang, Peter Ombaso, and Regina Kizito for gross misconduct. Other rebel MPs and MCAs were instructed to write an apology letter and pay fines of various amounts to the party, ranging from 250,000 shillings to 1 million. Nairobi County Woman Representative Esther Passaris, who went against the party's stand on the Finance Bill 2023, was fined 250,000 shillings to pay within 60 days and write an apology letter within 7 days. So it looks as though the whip was being cracked. And according to ODM National Chairman John Baddy, he said the MPs fined and saved from expulsion had appeared before the party's disciplinary committee and offered their explanations. Those who were expelled apparently did not. And said that the NEC, which backed the ongoing talks between the opposition and the government, also resolved to hold the party's grassroots elections next year. But this, what they're calling nonsense, whereby it seems as though you're frolicking with the other side, that they were not going to stomach it anymore.
You're advancing the interest of a rival political outfit.
Exactly.
And this is unacceptable. So we take disciplinary action. Number one, I think just from the basic of it, I must commend ODM. This is what we're saying. So if you have complaints and you think that somebody is going against the party, follow due process. If due process, according to the party's constitution, says you shall invite them, you shall ask them to come and present themselves, you shall ask them to do this and the other, and then you shall, if it has gone through due process, good. Because this is what a political party should do. Now, the next thing is, are you asking yourselves exactly why? Why would so many members of your party be cavorting with a rival party? Why would they be doing that? Did you ask them why? Do you understand what exactly is going on here? Because much as you say you want to rein in and instill discipline within your party, you must also listen to what's happening, what is being said.
Now,
is the message clear to the leadership of ODM that there's something here that we need to actually address and ask our members, what is it? What can we do?
The question I think that must be asked here is looking at the reasons as to why the members of the party, who many would have said before, were die-hard ODM supporters. They were members to the core. Inside and out, their attitude, their behavior showed everything that anybody who was looking from the outside in would be clear to them that these are ODM members and that they had pledged their allegiance for life to the party. So on that premise, why would these individuals, knowing full well the tenets of the party, then still go and be accepting of a meeting at State House, for example? If in their understanding such a thing was tantamount to betrayal or within party lines treason,
okay.
Why would they make such a move if they knew that it would be detrimental to them? Or did they not understand that whether it's spoken or not, whether it's written or not, such a move you do not do? Or did they really feel that actually this is not bad? What must I look at? Development, according to them, over
party affiliation?
Because at the end of the day, yes, because of my party affiliation, I got this seat in this place. That's clear. I got the nomination, I went to the vote, I got the backing of the party, and here I am. However, when you look at the development agenda for the country, certain things happen, whether you like it or not. It's going to go with the flow in terms of what the government, with the executive at the top, doing certain things. If you go and pay homage, does that mean that you are relinquishing your affiliation with your party to another? Because the explanations that we've heard over time, some who've sat in this chair,
they're saying it's development.
Said, it doesn't mean I am not with my party anymore.
It could also point to just what we've seen as bad manners in our politics. And this is why I'm saying it could be a step in the right direction when you start reining in on errant members. We call this impunity. You're elected, you campaign, you get a ticket of a certain political party, you are elected on the party's ticket, you go into parliament, and then you behave like, no, you actually don't have to belong to this political party. That is political party impunity. And if politicians then can start seeing, okay, no, if you are coming in with this party, then you shall abide by some basic rules and tenets of the party, it's important to do that. It's important for politicians to know that if I am seeking to be a member of this party, if I am seeking to be given a nomination ticket by this party, then I am also ceding something. I am subjecting myself to the rules of this party. If I don't like the rules, then there are internal party mechanisms that I can use to push for the amendment of those rules or the repealing of those rules. If there's any part of it that I don't like, I work within it or I walk out. So you cannot just be saying, you bwana ni maendeleo, si tunatafuta maendeleo watu wetu bwana. Yeah, it's okay, but there's the other thing. There's an institution called a political party, which is a recognized institution. It's not just some ad hoc thing. It's a recognized institution. Discipline is important.
Absolutely. I think there's also, it's necessary to have a deeper understanding of what the action meant, right? Because these guys will tell you to the very end, many have argued that they don't know if they're being honest or not, that they didn't feel as though whatever they did or wherever they went or whatever conversation they had was tantamount to relinquishing.
Or betraying the party.
So they've said even after that they would be party, they would be in the party for life. They are lifetime members. They didn't see any reason why this would cause this kind of thing that it has happened. Furthermore, call it further politics or not, they're still saying that there's a possibility of appeal for this. That would you understand my position and where I was and what I did? Look at a situation whereby there's an impasse between the opposition leader and the president today, whereby certain conversations are not happening. But here you are stuck with the mantle of execution of development in your particular constituency or in your area as a senator or as a member of parliament. And you know very well the way politics runs. If you are not on the good side of the executive, chances of development happening at a rate which is acceptable then are becoming slim. That's true. It's just the way it works here.
Yes, which is the other side of the bad manners of our politics.
Which shouldn't be.
Exactly.
It shouldn't be.
And by you moving over and crossing over, then you're endorsing it and saying that that is the way that things should work. We are saying basically that the winner, because you have won and you are the political party that is now in government, all other political parties should either bend the knee or there'll be no development in their areas. That should not be the case. It shouldn't be because a member of parliament or a member of a county assembly is from the opposite side of those in the executive, there should be no development. Development should be cross-cutting. And members of parliament prepare budgets. When they're preparing budgets, they also appropriate for specific projects. Campaign for those projects in the area. And then oversight to make sure that those things happen in your area. And those in the executive should know it doesn't matter whether in the government side or on the opposition side, you shall still also get. You don't have to come and kiss the ring. Because this thing of saying, I am going to kiss the ring so that I can get development in Pataka for my people. This is why we were writing a new constitution. This is why we were saying, let's actually delink these things. Let us say that parliament is an independent unit whose job is to oversight the executive. And then the executive does not even sit in parliament. Let them do their job that they've been given to do by the people, being oversighted by the parliament. Now, when you start kissing the ring, this impunity, we are re-entrenching this impunity. It needs to stop. And if this is one move that takes us towards that maturity, then let it be, man.
Do you feel that there's retrogression in terms of politics when we see because look, politics they're going to shape a lot of the way it does, shapes a lot of the way in which leadership and governance then comes out to be. It's done for generations. It's going to happen like that. That the politics of the day will play a role in the influence of leadership and governance, because essentially it is these individuals who then come in and fill these positions. So the way in which you play things out politically will have an effect on your development. It'll have an effect on governance. It'll have an effect on leadership. It'll have an effect now on these things that you're talking about, constitutionalism. It'll happen. Now, do we see that possibility of retrogression now when we say, oh, for crying out loud, we should have left the space whereby we're saying, you know what, if I haven't kissed the ring or if I haven't paid homage at State House to greet the president,
there will be no development.
There will be no
and
development.
My opponent will have something.
Right? That me in my oversight role in Kisumu County, for example, if I have not gone to pay homage, then the likelihood of things being pressed is greater. Or things just lay fallow because, you know, I don't have an opportunity to push because they haven't seen me or heard from me. It takes us back significantly.
Yes.
Because we should not be in that cycle whereby we're still doing that.
Yes.
Okay? Now, those who have been expelled, do you think that those who instigated this expulsion are also thinking along those lines? As you're saying now, it's fantastic in the optics, but are they seeing actually we need to teach them a lesson so that we do not see this kind of retrogression that I'm referring
That's
to
the
now?
other side.
Or are they actually seeing it as no, you've hurt me and you've gone to my arch rival.
Not at Pataki Chapo.
Exactly.
That's the other side, and that's why now I come in now to ODM. So on paper, taking action against the people that you consider errant members who may not be following party lines and who have been given an opportunity and they've not satisfied the internal party mechanisms, take action on them, fine. However, just like we're saying, it doesn't mean that because this is a party or political formation that has won the executive, that everybody should pay homage, kiss the ring, that you should be able to run independently. Also, it doesn't mean that those of you who are left in the minority, the opposition, whatever you want to call it, you must always say no to everything else that comes from the other side. Because is ODM sitting back here and just saying no to everything? Okay, so the president is coming to your area. Why are you welcoming him? Oh, the president has called for a meeting for saying, leaders of Nyanza, please come. leaders of Nyanza go, why are you going for that meeting? The president is saying, okay, I'd like to engage with members of parliament from this particular region or on this particular agenda, and the people who are championing that agenda, some of them belong to the opposition. Please come. You attend that meeting. Why are you attending the meeting? The ODM should also not operate like that.
I agree.
You cannot just sit back and say, as long as it comes from Kenya, no.
I agree.
It can't be that.
I agree to the extent that it can't just be that. But then if you want to look, maybe a little bit on the periphery here, is that, okay, political parties have standards of operation.
Yes.
Doesn't matter where you are. And I do feel that political party leadership is far from the ideal as per when we look at the birth of political parties and what they were meant to do in terms of ideologies. We still don't have that here. That political parties coalesce around an individual, and a political party is a vehicle for an individual to then get elected into office.
Yep.
That we know. However, the individual or this vehicle sets certain rules and standards about how the party will operate, right? Was this made known? Or is it one of those unspoken things whereby we don't have to tell you, but you're not to be caught in the neighbor's yard at all, not even after 6 p.m. At all? Is it an unspoken thing, or is it meant to be
It's awesome
understood?
because my mother has cosaned with a neighbor.
So don't I dare
cannot,
see you not
I
talking
cannot
to
talk
her
to
or receiving
these
a
kids
sweet
are my
from her
friends.
if she comes.
We go to school, we walk to school together, but from tomorrow you're not walking to school together. Let them walk, and then you walk 5 meters behind them, because you cosaned over something.
And that's the problem.
This is what is happening here.
And that's
this
the
person
problem.
who was reading out the punishment being meted out on people is ODM chairman John Mbadi. He's been here before. He's told us when the president visited Homa Bay, ahead of the presidential visit to Homa Bay, he said, can I meet with the leaders from the region so we can plan, okay, what is it that we're going to be discussing, And John Mbadi is among those who attended a meeting in State House to plan for this. When the president went to Homa Bay, an ODM person, the governor of the area, welcomed him. John Mbadi was among those who welcomed him. And then there was the tussle, of course, between those who are still ODM members and those who are seen to be now leaning towards the Kenya Kwanza, who are still also ODM members. And the point is, are they being punished just because they have sat for meetings with the president? Are they being punished because they have gone against the party's ideology? And the party is very clear that this is what we stand for. We oppose affordable housing. Jalango, you're welcoming the president for affordable housing and praising him. We are opposed to affordable housing. We oppose this kind of project. Jalango, you are championing this project. Therefore, you're clearly going against what the party stands for. We agreed that this is what the party stands for. You are voting against what the party stands for. Is that what they're being punished for? Or is it just because you people, finance bill, you're just voting yes.
But is that not what Esther Passaris has been fined for?
That's it.
She voted for the finance bill, and she's been asked to apologize, and then she's been fined 250,000 shillings. So I'm wondering, you're going to make this apology because you went against the party position, not because you were a thinking human being of sound mind and maybe you saw something that was going to make some kind of sense. And this is my problem with individuals coalescing around, or rather people would be leaders
coalescing around an
individual. That's my problem, because you don't see sense thereafter. Even if you would want to think in a certain direction, you're almost not given the freedom or liberty of thought.
Yep.
And what does that mean? What does that mean then when you're in your nuclear position of leadership? What does that mean? That you will forever have the monkey on your back asking questions? Can I do this or can I not do the other? And this is my problem, that political party ideology needs to be re-entrenched. Actually, just needs to be entrenched. I don't think...
And made clear.
And made very clear in terms of what is supposed to happen.
And party position, if there's a party position, let it be a very clear party position, not a dictated party position, right? So if we are opposed to the finance bill, are we opposed to all the clauses in the finance bill, or are we opposed to this and this and this clause of the finance bill? And therefore we are saying that we shall collectively vote on this one. We have no issue. You can vote how you wish. On this one, we are strong on it. as a party, because this goes against what we stand for as a party. This is going against our ideology. We do not feel that people should be taxed for fuel at all. And these are the reasons why our party does not stand for taxation on fuel. So if there's a 1% addition or 2% or an 8% or a 16% addition to taxation on fuel, we as a party don't stand for it, and therefore it's automatic. We shall say no. Okay?
Yeah.
But this is not it. We're just saying, no, it is expensive.
Because you are on the other side. Would we be saying the same thing if your side of the divide was actually in the position of the presidency? That's a question. But an example has come into my mind.
Right.
Look at the parties of the Republicans and the Democrats in the United States. It is very rare that you will find, rare, but not impossible, that you will find a member of the Republican Party who is pro-choice. Do you understand?
Yep.
So by the time you're joining the party, you are an individual who is already thinking in a certain direction. And you say, this is where I'm thinking. And there happens to be a political party whose foundation is on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I am joining this party to be able to go and lead for this area, ward level, higher, state, county, etc., because I know very clearly these are the foundations of the party. If they're going to change, it would be made public, and any individual comes in and fits into the prescribed boxes. It's there.
Yeah.
Whether you come, you leave 100 years from now, that is what it is going to be. Sure, they keep building on it, but you know very well that's what it's going to be. Same, that it is very hard to find a Democrat who will be pro-choice. I mean, sorry, who will be pro-life. It's very difficult for you to find a Democrat who will be pro-life because they're leaning towards the left. So you ask yourself those questions. At the very beginning when you were joining, was there something that you would say, this is what our party stands for? Who will you say today is the leader of the Democratic Party in the United States that you can point to an individual and you say, yeah, actually, this is the person that we coalesce around and this is the person that we follow? You'd be hard-pressed to find. You will find vocal individuals, yes, you will, but there's something that they're all leaning on towards. You will not find that there's expulsion of a party member because of a position that they took in the House of Representatives.
They maybe campaigned them.
They could.
In an election.
Very possible.
Yeah.
But what am I saying? That you still maintain your position as a thinking human being, even if you're a member of a party. And that is my question. Political parties, are we reducing individuals to people who've then become yes men? Or are we saying that you join a political party and you get a position, whether it's member of parliament, senator, whatever it is, that you're working within party tenets and elements, but you still retain your integrity, and I'm saying integrity on this line, or you retain your agency as somebody who can make decisions while following party. That has to be looked at.
Yep. Both sides have to be looked at. Both sides in terms of, look, ODM expelled Aisha Jumwa. And Aisha Jumwa's big sin was that she was cavorting with the Tanga people led by the then Deputy President William Ruto. Of course, it didn't go through because the dispute tribunal found that the party had not followed through the proper process, internal mechanism. But then this is the thing. She was expelled just because she was campaigning for Ruto, who is not a member of the party today, who was a member of the party 10 years ago.
Right.
You know, he's okay. But what else? What else do you use to say that this is what a party stands for? This is what our party stands for. These are our internal guidelines on how you shall behave as a member of our party. This is how we shall communicate with you. This is how, if you have a contrary opinion, you shall raise that with other members of the party and debate it. And you can say, then I can take a position on this one. I don't agree with the mainstream line taken by the party, but I agree with 98% of the other things of the party.
Absolutely.
That's one side. On the other side, you cannot just go and get a ticket for a political party and then you get elected into parliament and you have not even spoken. These are first-time MPs. Carol Omondi is a first-time MP. Jalango is a first-time MP. Senator for Kisumu. He's a first-time legislator. These are first-time MPs.
Never
You're just
spoken
getting
in the
into
House.
Parliament, so we don't even know what you stand for politically. And then you come in, and the next thing, you're Okoh with Ruto, you're saying it's because I'm for looking for development. Who says that looking for development means that you have to keep following around the president? Is that it?
Yeah. Well, look, it's
There's some element of dishonesty in that conversation. You're basically saying, I have defected. It's only that, well, do whatever you can do. Oh, as in the football. Kenya, okay, now here it is. There's a likelihood that the dispute tribunal may find some fault somewhere and not go through with his expulsion. But let's say there's an expulsion and it goes through and they go back to the electorate. Do they have standing? Do they have a leg to stand on?
Because we must also understand that the voting goes on two things, individual lines and party lines.
Yep.
So you have to ask yourself the question, when this person was being given the vote, the person who voted for them, there was the promise of your allegiance to the party. There was also the promise of your allegiance to them as individuals, whereby you were going to do something based on the fact of the party that you came from. So has that changed then because of this action? People, look, we can say it. People looked at Felix Odiwuor in Langata and said, okay, we see you, but behind you we see Raila Odinga.
Yeah.
Yes.
There are
So
those
now
who
if you-
voted for Felix Odiwuor because of the party ODM.
Yes.
There are those who voted for Felix Odiwuor because he is Felix Odiwuor.
Absolutely.
Whatever outfit he'd have come with, even if it's independent,
They
he'd
would
have
have
gotten
voted for him.
some votes.
Yes.
Okay, there's that. But then we've got to understand that there's a mix of both. Now, have you betrayed those that said it's because of ODM? It's because I want an ODM member in Parliament. That's why I'm voting for the ODM candidate. And I came in and I participated in the nomination to have you as the person who I shall vote for.
We have to ask ourselves, though, if your daughter from your house under the name Latiff and you have an argument with the neighbor over 1, 2, 3, and your daughter goes to visit the other child in the other house, does she cease to be a Latiff?
Nope. She continues. But if we stand for something in this household, and then she goes in there and says, which they don't, right?
Then you can tell her, now go and live with them.
Yeah, there are things that we stand for here in this household, and we've communicated clearly that this is who we are as a family. This is what we stand for. And you immediately cross over to the other side and you seem to be championing that other cause, then we can raise an issue and say, here you're going against the family lines. Okay? But not because Eric, the father, fought at the bar with the neighbor so-and-so. Now, nobody in my family should talk. Or Eric, the father, was campaigning for the local Nyumba Kumi chairman against so-and-so. So-and-so has beaten me as a Nyumba Kumi chairman. And so my family should not even be going for Nyumba Kumi meetings. Really?
That's what we're seeing, though.
No. It's an interesting conversation.
Very.
This one, we'll see how it goes, how it pans out. But sanity in our politics is important once in a while. We hope that this begins to instill some sanity somewhere. Let's open up the conversation and hear, how shall it go? Both sides. Good morning. It's 8 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is the News Wire. I'm Leah Obaga. The world now waits to see whether African countries are determined to wield more global influence and bring in far more financing and support for climate action in line with the commitments in the Nairobi Declaration. Several stakeholders have criticized the summit, saying it did not meet the expectations because they overpromised but seriously under-delivered. This, according to the critics, means that Africa will be going into COP28 in a weakened position.
Well, it is good that it's a platform to build momentum for global engagement, and particularly in the run-up to the next conference of parties in UAE. It is also good to understand that there was substantial commitment in terms of monies. We have been told 23 billion. That is no small sum by any means. That would be good. But in terms of the demands that we have seen so forcefully communicated, and in terms of expectations, I think probably we are expecting too much. This thing has been going around for over 3 decades, and nothing much has come out of it. The promises have not been fulfilled. So I think it would have been best to understand how African governments are going to invest their own monies and source their own monies, rather than look outside to expect that people will bring money to Africa.
Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Mashogu says the Universities Fund and Higher Education Loans Board has been directed to put in place measures to commence immediate and speedy processing of scholarships and bursaries for all students who've already applied. Mashogu further says that as per the Cabinet directive issued last month, the Ministry of Education has waived the requirement of a national identity card for the students who've not attained the age of 18 years to allow them to apply for loans. This event comes as the loan application process has been extended up to the 7th of next month. A woman in Murang'a County has undergone a third corrective surgery for the removal of a surgical needle left in her birth canal after she delivered her child 5 months ago at Kirwara Level 5 Hospital. Evelyn Wairimu will now have to be referred to another specialized hospital after medics at the Maragua Hospital failed to retrieve the needle, which they say is now near her bladder.
Pata mtoto delivery vizuri, alafu tena nikishonwa nikaambiwa shindano daktari imekatika. Sasa kuniambia imekatika, akaniambia ati ajaribu kuguzaguza mahali alikuwa nashona nifilika naisikia. Nikamwambia sisikii cause obvious alikuwa amenigandisha kidogo. Akaniambia let's hope imetoka na damu cause damu ilikuwa na bleed. Nimekuwa na kashida kutoka hiyo siku on May hadi wa leo cause nimekuwa na pain ya nikilala, nikitembea sometimes vile nilipelekwa x-ray nikarudisha picha mahali nilipatia mtoto. Wakajaribu kuitafuta tena wakaikosa, akaniambia maybe walinifai kwa hosi nyingine yenye iko na ile mashine ya kutoa mahali hiyo kitu iko.
Evelyn's relatives have called on the Murang'a County Health Department to investigate the incident of medical negligence.
Sasa Evelyn inabidi sasa akamwe maziwa amwage, amekuwa tu tukipitia shida mingi sana. So sisi tunaomba kama haki ipatikane, at least sasa hiyo sindano iko ndani ya mwili itolewe.
Wakuwe waangalifu sana wakati wanatibu wagonjwa. Juu hii si kitu poa kuacha wagonjwa wa mashindano awembe kwa tumbo, si poa.
Langata MP Felix Odora Elias Jalango has reacted to plans by ODM to expel him and 4 others from the party over their association with President William Ruto. Via Twitter, Jalango turned to the Bible to respond to the party, quoting 1 Corinthians 10:13, which says that no trial is too heavy to lift, no temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. Jalango was among 5 parliamentarians who the party plans to expel. Others include Elisha Odhiambo, Karoli Omondi, Gideon Ochanda and Kisumu Senator Tom Ojenda. The party said the resolution was arrived at during a national executive committee of the party. And in the international scene, Gabon's former president Ali Bongo, who was ousted in a purge, is free to leave the country and travel abroad, and the leader of the coup that toppled him said Bongo, in power for 14 years, had been under house arrest since the military coup on August 30th carried out without bloodshed less than an hour after his party proclaimed his re-election in a vote described as fraudulent by the putschists. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, it's now a few minutes after 8 o'clock and we're still looking at traffic. Different parts of the city this morning now has built up differently from what it was before. Are you coming off the Thika Superhighway? Then you're going to be dealt with quite some of it coming out from that Outer Ring Junction well into the city. And we're also looking at it heavy on Kiambu Road this morning. Limuru Road is also giving. It's coming off the northern bypass, joining with Muthaiga. And traffic that's coming out of Westlands is also bringing it in quite heavy. Langata Road is busy as you get towards the junction at the Nyeri Stadium roundabout. And we'll see traffic continuing coming in from North Airport Road, Cabanas, out towards the Eastern Bypass. Traffic hour proper this morning. Keep safe while you're doing what you're doing. Let's talk on Spice FM, KE on X.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
After 8. Good morning and welcome to the third hour of Kenya's biggest conversation. This is a Situation Room on Spice FM, on KTN Home, on YouTube and on Facebook. So City is still out there, the campaigning, addressing one or two people, delegates that have come to see him. Asubuhi here leo. But he may join us at some point as we continue the conversation. We are joined by a guest who now is in the studio. Her name is Katambi Karia, and she's very big. It's one of the ex-bigwigs. No, it's no longer Twitter bigwigs. It's ex-bigwig.
Not former, but ex.
A Twitter bigwig.
Thank you.
Yeah. Imagine that's what you are. On Twitter, she goes with by the name I am Katambi. That's the X handle. I am Katambi. Katambi, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you.
Welcome to the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be having a conversation about the just concluded Africa Climate Summit 2023, what's happened around it, the conversations. There are very many conversations in the main hall, the sidelines of this, the private sector, NGOs and everybody, and then the communique that came out yesterday and the resolutions that came out and what's been discussed. Okay? But to welcome you to the conversation, CT is not here for the proverb. Do you remember the proverb, Ndu?
Yes. A young man who travels around the world is older than an old man who remains in the village.
Yes.
Now, that is my interpretation plus salt and pepper, but that's what we said.
That's the proverb,
Thank you very much.
It's from Gabon.
A young man who travels around the world.
A young man who travels around the world is older than an old man who remains in the village.
So my interpretation of that is has to do with exposure, and what do they say? When the traveling exposure, experiencing other people, other cultures, sort of gives you more perspective than your little circle of influence.
So you have a lot more. You've learned a lot more despite your age.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
If you compare you to the person who just stayed in one place, hasn't had multiple experiences, your multiplicity of experiences also adds on to your knowledge, your wisdom, your wealth of knowledge and information.
Absolutely.
So, Tembea, that's what basically these Gabonese are saying.
Yeah.
You don't just sit here.
Just sit there from beginning to end.
Yeah. You want to be considered old. And old in this case is wisdom, wise, knowledgeable. Travel.
Some of your experiences. So imagine if your experiences are on a global, global could be around the world, or global could be different parts of Kenya. You're the sum of your experiences. Now, if some of your experiences is in one place.
That's it. So, Katambi, you are CEO of a company called Credit Advisory, and you're also an expert on climate financing and very many other things. Just take us through, first of all, what is Credit Advisory? Creed Advisory.
So it's basically, what do you say, advisory, but with a very specific focus on Africa, focused advocacy and Africa issues across climate change and policy making, sustainable finance, and mobilizing private and private sector capital into just transitions, climate change, mitigation, adaptation, resilience, and so on. But with a very specific focus on Africa.
On Africa?
Yeah.
Why? Why Africa? And how long have you done this?
Well, I've done this for, my work in climate policy and finance for a very long time, over 10 years. And I think the focus on Africa is just quite simply because the continent needs very dedicated, honest brokers. Right, you need people who are invested in the success of the continent, and sometimes that looks. It looks, depending on what the topic of the day is, it can look like anything. It's probably not the solutions that we've come to expect from mainstream sort of capacity or support that is provided, generally speaking, across consulting services. So yeah, I think.
So it's all those things. But then when you talk about climate in this country and cities here, city amemalizana na delegation, wamewapatia kila mtu yake wameenda.
Kila mtu amechukua na ameenda. Lakini kuna nyingine bado wanakuja.
Kuna wengine wanakuja.
Wakija tutaona.
Okay.
Yes.
So welcome back, City.
Thank you.
Mr. Katambi is right here, just taking us through climate and understanding climate financing from an African perspective. And that's what you say. You focus on Africa because you want to be the champion in the room when Africa is having this conversation on Africa, when there's thinking for Africa and African issues. And it's a big thing because we keep talking about climate financing, but then we see people who are from outside Africa talking about climate finance. We keep talking about what climate change and the impact of climate change and then climate adaptation and all those things, but we seem to have disjointed voices. Have you experienced that in your 10 years working in this market and on climate?
Yes, of course. Primarily because I think every stakeholder at the table in climate conversations is there to represent their interests, right? So African stakeholders, they want to speak for what's in their best interests. The global north stakeholders want to speak in their best interests. Quite often, these are not sometimes compatible goals, right? And so you do need people who are sitting there and being very stubborn about being, very strong advocates for what their stakeholders need. Yes, to answer your question, yes, there's a huge disconnect, and I think this is part of what we're seeing in terms of the climate conversations. We've been talking about financing climate for the last God knows how long. It's not happening, and it's because of this kind of disconnects. And
are we seeing a shift though? And I think that's one of the things that came out from the very beginning of even a suggestion to have an ACS and to have one on the continent, and for President Ruto to say, look, we're going to have this conversation. We heard certain things being said, but are we seeing that this is shifting a little bit? That for the longest time we've seen talking. It's been talk shops. We're at COP28 this year, for crying out loud. But for somebody from the continent to then open their mouth and make it audible to the world that, look, you know what, you've been shafting us for the last however many years, and we're not going to take that anymore. How about we have a conversation where all the big boys and girls are at the table and everybody gets a chance to say something? Are we seeing a shift in the conversation, or did we just have another talk shop?
It's just concluded yesterday, so it's hard to say. I'm a bit of a cynic because I've been, as I said, over 10 years of doing this. So declarations come and go. I think the deciding factor really has to do with commitment and implementation. That's what we don't see when we talk about from the COP15 Paris agreement. There's a lot of talking. This was also a lot of talking as of now. But what is important also is that I think this was a fantastic opportunity to bring the climate conversation back home to Africa. And the reason I say that is because you hear the statistic quite often, that Africa is the most impacted by climate change, blah, 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 blah. But if you ask most Africans, a lot of them do not have nuance into what are we talking about when we talk about climate change. And so I think bringing the ACS to Kenya, to Africa, has been so remarkable in terms of spurring the conversation and sort of localizing this conversation about climate change. That's super important. I think the president, to give credit to him, really met this moment. Because, remember, this is happening in the context of the CAHOSC, the AU Heads of States Committee on Climate Change. And so that's a conversation that has been happening they meet every year, they discuss things, they go to COP. Most of us, if you're not in the climate change space, you do not know what they've been discussing or sort of what common positions have been advanced, right? So this has happened now, and we've had the conversation being brought publicly to the continent, and everyone is part of that. I think that's remarkable.
Is everyone part of it, really?
What I mean, no. Probably not, but what I mean by everyone is part of it is that this has been a very public conversation. Have you heard before of the CAHOSC meetings?
Actually,
you haven't, right? But every year at COP28, the AU goes and presents a position on Africa. But most people do not know what that is. So there's value in that process.
When you say we need to have an honest conversation, are you then suggesting that we haven't been having an honest conversation?
We haven't. We probably even haven't had an honest conversation this time.
Good.
But what I'm saying is that we've had a public conversation, and I think that makes a huge difference.
See, I like what you're saying. We at least now can have an honest conversation. When you talk about climate change financing, even that concept alone, climate change financing, what exactly are you financing? Because you talk climate, me I hear weather.
Okay.
And when I hear weather, I hear rain, I hear sunshine, I hear drought. That's climate as far as I'm concerned. Question number one. When the West talks about climate change, are they talking about the same things we are talking about when we talk about climate change? Because there's the conversation that there's commonality. Where is it?
Okay. Interesting. So climate finance, when you talk about climate financing, you're basically thinking about financing three things, let's say. You're thinking about financing resilience, right? Adaptation and mitigation. Let me explain what that means, right? Is from a layman's standpoint, what you're calling weather, right? Is changes in climate accumulating over years. And so what we are talking about when we talk about climate change is how that is impacting our lives now. If you go to a farmer, they'll probably not have the language of climate finance or climate change, but they can tell you how their crops have been affected, how rainfall patterns are changing and affecting, their crops, their land, and so on and so forth. We can see droughts affecting people.
Which means they understand it.
Yes. So it's also a science communication problem, right? Because it's about distilling this language into very perceptible concepts for general audiences.
Easily consumable.
Yes, precisely. But climate finance really just comes down to financing that. And the hard part with climate finance now becomes when you start talking about the issue of revenue.
You see,
and profits.
When you talk climate change and you go historical on it, we've always had climate change.
Yes.
That's why people talk of the ice age. It's an age because it came to an end. We now have yes, it came to an end. We are now talking about some areas of the world that were predominantly ice-ridden, thawing. We are talking about oceans rising. If you want to go back into history, all these things have happened at a certain point in time. The fundamental difference has been the recurrence of the cycle is getting shorter and shorter and shorter.
Yes.
Before it would take a millennia. So several generations would have no clue whatever happened. Now, within one generation, you can see all these changes taking place. Now, I like what you said about science communication. Why is it then that when you look at a local peasant farmer, because they understand climate change, they had bans, meaning they knew a time comes when I may not have enough food and I can't grow it. They'll grow it. They understood the cycles. Why did they prepare for planting? They knew the cycles. They knew at this point in time, I'll be able to plant. They understood it. Okay. Are we saying that understanding, with all these green gas emissions and everything else, that what we understood and the patterns that were known have now changed? Now, what has changed them? And why is it that it's affecting us? Because clearly it has changed. It rains when it's not supposed to rain. The sun shines when it's not supposed to shine. Yeah. We have snow in Nyahururu, something which we were told we should not have. So all these things. Now, how exactly, when we talk about financing resilience, now, if I want a farmer to be protected from all these things, break down this resilience in this farming setup as a peasant and how that can actually be monetized, meaning money getting into my pocket, so that when this occurrence, which is adverse, actually takes place, I'm resilient. And the money I have is able to protect me from what is about to come. Because if you start doing that, then you're saying you can predict the changes in climate. And yet, the whole conversation about climate change is the vagaries of it. So where are we really?
Right. Okay. So let me bring in, without getting too sciencey. You're right in the sense that the climate change is temporal. Like we see changes in climate over time. But when you look back at sort of the trends and the patterns of changing climate, what you'll find is that, and to speak to the point of unpredictability now, is that the increase in CO2 emissions as a result of human activity, what they call anthropogenic activity, which coincides with the Industrial Revolution, right, is what led to that increase in CO2 concentration in the air. And as a result, the predictability that we were talking about is no longer as predictable, right? And so this is what the conversation around decarbonization and removing, sort of cutting back on fossil fuels comes down to the resilience question. And again, why the climate conversation is very important is resilience is not an easy thing to finance because there's no profit to be made out of financing resilience, right? If let's say there's a flood and a village is wiped out, the money that, or a farmer's crops are wiped out, the money that steps in for that is not going to be investment from the private sector. It's not going to be what we call, it's not for profit investments, right? So typically this will be grant money, the stuff that, you go ask global governments to, give money for grants and stuff like that. And that's also not sustainable because this is also linked to taxpayer expenditure, right? And so that's why you hear, even from the conversation that the president was talking about, this idea of a global carbon tax, because you need to fund that expenditure from something. And the way to do it, the global carbon tax, which I know people have a problem with the idea of that, but the value of a global carbon tax is that it now
So you're specifically identifying emitters pay into a certain kitty, and then that kitty will be used to fund now those.
Because that's a very difficult thing to fund, right? You have adaptation.
Well, why is it difficult?
Because money moves from
in mysterious ways.
No, because you need sources of public funding. You need a source of public funding. Yes. This money is not going to come from the private sector because the private sector has a profit motivation, right? Adaptation money as well is rarely going to come from the private sector. Adaptation money, to be clear, is the money that we need to adapt to the climate change that's already happening.
Can
right?
I just pause you for a second?
Yes.
Private sector, if I'm to go by the discussion we're having, carbon emission and all that, are responsible for all this, aren't they? Industries,
yes, they
private
are.
sector, yes. So now, they would argue they pay taxes. We get that. But the taxes are so that they can conduct their business. The tax does not include the harm that they cause and the attendant financial burdens that come with it. Then comes the concept of CSR. Okay? So when you say they cannot pay, I'm saying, why not?
But you see, now that depends on their benevolence.
Yes, exactly.
And you cannot really force somebody to be benevolent to a certain extent. These are shareholders and private shareholders. If you force them, it becomes that tax, the carbon tax.
Yes.
And you say, because you're emitting X amount of CO2 into the air, then you pay at this rate to a carbon tax. So that way, you are forcing. It's not a conversation of this year, we did not make enough profit. Our shareholders wanted a higher dividend this year, so we are not putting a lot of money into our CSR. Next year, maybe we shall do something. Maybe kuja tuongeleshe next year. So we are saying, it's if the private sector was left to on their own devices or their
they wouldn't.
The abundance of their good heart.
For the private sector.
I do agree with you completely. But you see, where my mind went was for some of these class action cases involving something like, say, the tobacco industry. Okay? Where the harm that tobacco caused was known, but it took a lot of time and a lot of harm and a lot of deaths for people to say, something needs to change here. Now we have this discussion with opioids. Okay. Now, direct harm to human beings leading to death. Now, carbon emission does exactly the same thing, probably on a much grander scale.
Yes.
Now, so I understand the tax element. My discussion is beyond the tax, because tax is obligatory. There's always the understanding, because for this to get to the point where we're saying you are going to pay this tax, it means the argument you propose is absolutely correct. It won't happen if you don't do that. I'm asking the question, must industry necessarily be that particular creation and being that has to be forced to do what is actually right?
So, in an ideal world, everyone would be decarbonizing their supply chains, right? And shifting to non-polluting, low fossil fuel supply chains. But we understand you're not going to yank out all the fossil fuels. You're not going to shut off gas plants and coal plants overnight. And so the point is that you're doing a couple of things at the same time. You're asking for the decarbonization to happen, but you're also saying these high emitters, and this is not just industries, this is also countries, right? Because the global north, when we talk about decarbonizing, a carbon tax is a disincentive to emit, right? Because if you're paying for emissions, then you start reducing your emissions, right? So that you pay less. The other thing about a global carbon tax, when you look at, say, the global South African countries, is it hits us very little because our emissions are low anyway, right? We are not paying much of global tax. And I think that's when we start negotiating about a global tax, I think African nations need to get behind that because, outside of North Africa and South Africa, who are heavy emitters, the rest of us, we need that. When we are talking about flooding and all these climate-related emergencies, we need a pot of money that can serve us. And that money is not going to be us constantly going to beg folks for grants and to ask for people. Yes.
So when it comes to then adaptation and mitigation, this is where private sector would play when it comes to now climate financing, all right? And it's for profit.
Yeah.
How does that work?
I want to say mitigation more for the private sector rather than adaptation, right? Mitigation is pretty easy. It's green investments. There's money to be made. If you make it attractive enough for the private sector, they'll come in, they'll invest. Everybody is happy. Adaptation, not so much, because what adaptation does is it creates savings, but it's not necessarily a high revenue activity. Because fundamentally what adaptation is you are financing Okay, let me give you an example. Let's say the coastal area needs like a seawall because the sea level is rising, there's going to be floods. There's not much profit for the private sector there. So what you need for adaptation, and this is a critical part of the conversation that was happening, and that needs to happen because Africa's needs are very, very high on adaptation, more than mitigation. So what you need for adaptation financing is finance that is cheap and that is long-term. Typically, this finance will come from multilateral development banks, DFIs, because they have development outcomes as a priority. So they're not, I mean, they can make some revenue, but they're not, so this is why people are talking about 1% for 1.5, although that conversation has long passed. But giving these really, really cheap loans, concessional loans for adaptation activities. The thing for Africa is because we are dealing with the impacts of climate change already. A lot of our needs have to do with adaptation, but it's the least funded, right? In 2015, the countries at the Paris summit, at the COP summit, countries agreed to have something called parity, which is 50-50 for climate change adaptation and mitigation. But that hasn't happened because everybody is going to mitigation, which is building new resilient stuff. I mean, the African Development Bank, for example, has been remarkable in terms of achieving and exceeding parity because I think 63% of their financing went to adaptation. At the summit, they also, I think, launched the Adaptation Initiative. That's and I think that's one of the things that was missing from this climate conversation. Not missing, but it's really what Africa needs. That should have been front and center.
Should have been the bigger thing, the bigger agenda.
The bigger agenda. I did see, there's a bit of numbers and sort of asks in the declaration around adaptation, expanding adaptation financing. And what those look like is now this multilateral development banks and expanding concessional financing.
Let's take a break. It's 27 minutes to 9. Kenya's biggest conversation is hosting Kadhambi Karia this morning. She's the CEO of Creed Advisory and an expert on climate financing, focusing on Africa and what's happening in the continent. We are looking at what has just concluded the Africa Climate Summit. And the outcomes of it, the output of that was, of course, a communique that was issued yesterday by the heads of state and government and what they said. We'll be looking at that. What does that mean? How does it help Africa? How does it help us going forward? 29th day of October, what happens?
It's the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. Remember, it's Kenya's largest single-day athletics event. It's back this year. It's bigger than it was last year. It's a special year, this one, because it's the 20th edition. So, are you joining folks at the Uhuru Gardens on the 29th of October? You can do it. Celebrate 20 years of running in Nairobi. Register for 2,000 shillings at www.nairobimarathon.com. Remember, the Future Makers program is being supported here, where young people, especially girls and people with disability, get the opportunity to learn, earn, and grow. Log on, register. Let's run on the 29th.
Kadhambi, you take tea, right? Chai.
Yes.
Chai.
Chai.
And chai is
coffee,
chai.
Actually.
Coffee.
Yeah.
And with milk or black?
No, black.
But you serve people.
Like me, huh?
You serve people white tea and white coffee. And the best one is you think about is the one with maziwa. They say the best chai, when you go to Shags, you know how they serve tea?
Yes.
This much water, this much milk.
Yes.
And then you go to urban areas. This much water, this much milk. And they say, no, let's change that.
Yeah.
Chai kweli ni chai ya maziwa mingi. And maziwa mingi comes with Dairy Best. Dairy Best is a long life milk. So you buy many packets, you keep there, you store. You don't need to think about, okay, how long is it gonna? It lasts longer. So because it's long life milk, so you just keep serving tea. Chai kweli ni
halisi.
Dairy Best. Kila kitu. Dairy Best. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Revenge is for children.
is for kids. When you grow up, you realize the best revenge you can take on somebody is to ignore them.
Now, I'm just new in politics. It is not everybody's cup of tea. That's why some people come in one term and that's it for them.
Political parties in this country do not have ideologies, whether luring or otherwise.
And that is the effect of corruption.
Any time an offense occurs anywhere in the country, it is the job of the Inspector General to look into it. Whether it's corruption, whether it's murder, whether it's petty, that is his job.
If we have chosen to be a corrupt nation, then we produce corrupt leaders. Everything then becomes chaotic that you cannot be able to change a nation.
The Situation Room.
All right, partly sunny conditions in Nairobi this morning. We're looking at highs of 26 and lows of 14. We'll see lows of 12, partly sunny Nakuru at 18, going to highs of 27, and 25 will be the high in a mostly sunny Nyeri at 17. 15 and sunny in Eldoret, highs of 22, and at 25, we're looking at sunny conditions in Mombasa, highs of 30. And we'll see highs of 30 as well in a sunny Malindi. It's 21 and cloudy in Kisumu, highs of 28. And we'll see highs of 26 in Kakamega, where it's cloudy at 17. Kampala still continues to rain this morning at 20, highs of 28. And it's sunny in Dar es Salaam with highs of 31 and lows of 22. 12 degrees and sunny in Johannesburg, highs of 25. And we'll see highs of 30 in a clear Lagos at 24. It's 24 and partly cloudy in Kinshasa. We'll see highs of 34 and lows of 23.
Spice up your life.
Okay, so what are we looking at now? 8:30, traffic coming in then. Uhuru Highway still busy. Where are people going? Some it's finished now. Okay, traffic also on Langata Road, busy here. Coming off of the thicker superhighway, not as cloggy as it was before, but then when you're past your service lanes option, you're going to have to go bumper to bumper through towards the Pangani underpass, and a little bit of traffic left coming in from Kiambu Road touching on Muthaiga Square. It's busy on Limuru Road coming from Muthaiga. It's also busy in some parts of Westlands. Okay, Chiromo is looking good, not an issue there. James Gishero also flowing well. Let's talk Spice FM KE on X.
Are you ready? Okay. Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
2 minutes with Kadambi Karia. Kadambi is an expert on climate financing, looking at what was discussed and what came out of the Africa Climate Summit. Let's just get straight into that one, right? So they came up with a communique and they said, so we start from this point. This is what we have currently as our issues and our standpoint, and then this is what we now want to push going forward. Do you think the Africa Climate Summit actually delivered on what it was expected to deliver?
So a couple of things it was expected. I expected it to deliver, right? The first we've already talked about, which is bringing the conversation back
to Africa.
And having a strong champion, because we haven't had that. If you look across the landscape, the continental landscape, really, we haven't had a strong voice for this climate action and sort of the climate direction for Africa. And so I think we got that in the president. I think he met the moment really well, to give credit to him. Now, the meat and potatoes of the declaration itself, right? Remember, it's flowing from the summit that was held in Paris in July. Yeah. And a lot of these declarations are actually part of that process. It's important that they are now, because before, these are summit declarations that were made in Paris, and where's the Africa in that? So bringing them and contextualizing them to the African context is important. So I think the summit has achieved that. The content of them, I expected to see progress in terms of just moving from the same things that were stated in Paris, showing up again in the Nairobi Declaration. I don't know. I expected a bit of momentum, and the reason is because when you've been in this space for a long time, you realize very quickly that nothing gets done unless there's commitment to implement stuff.
Oh, absolutely,
right?
Kalambi. I mean, look, even if you haven't been in the space, let's look between Scotland for COP26, Sharm el-Sheikh, COP27, going to Dubai, COP28. In 2 years, what has been talked about has not been done. Let's look between November 2022 and November 2023, that is fast approaching. What movement has been made beyond the declarations that came out of Sharm el-Sheikh? And the truth of the matter is that we can unequivocally say zero. And that's the truth. There have been talk shops, there have been people saying things, and my hope, my desire, and I said this at the beginning of last week, before people came to Nairobi, that as African leaders are coming together, whether the intention is genuine or not, we saw the reaction that came from the West. Everybody was clamoring to come to Nairobi to be part of this conversation. And if anything, it's something that should fuel action by African leaders and governments moving forward. That all you have to do is come together, and everybody's peeping from their doors and asking, what's going on in Africa, and wants to be part of the conversation. We should be the ones to lead this conversation about the things that concern us. And it's not just climate, it's other things as well. But now that we're talking about climate, we should be able to lead in the things that concern us and make tangible, valuable decisions based on the realities that we see. I personally believe that the reason why these talk shops continue to be talk shops is because the real interest is to have people talking while you keep doing whatever it is that you want to do. And if you ask me, they've achieved that very well. But if African governments, leaders, organizations within Africa, bilateral, unilateral, multilateral, are having these conversations and following them with action, we don't need financing from the north for adaptation in the south. We don't need their money. We have it here.
Where?
We don't. Where we
have the
are,
money.
We have resources here.
Show us. Show me.
We have resources here.
You continue, I will show you where the money is.
We have resources here that we apply to things that don't bring about the necessary development that we go and cry about tomorrow. And we go and have conversations, and we are not able to make decisions that are going to better develop us here. And if you ask me, that's one of the things that I think that is being pushed for. When we're at the table and negotiating, how are we negotiating? In whose interests are we negotiating? Knowing full well that those conversations are happening, to keep conversations happening, but nothing is being done.
You've raised a really important point on where's the money for adaptation. Like we in an ideal world, we would have the money for adaptation, but we don't. And I think part of the bigger conversation on reforming, everyone is talking about, we need to reform the global financial architecture, right? This feeds into that conversation, especially if you think about debt servicing, right? Where are you going to have the money to adapt to climate change if all your money is tied up in servicing debt, for example, right? It's not even, you're not even going to have money to forget even adaptation, healthcare, food, education, right? And so that big conversation about we are reforming the global financial architecture feeds into all of these things. Asking for debt restructuring and fair debt and sort of all of those things.
Can I ask, why do you think the North and the West keep coming to Africa? Why do they keep coming here?
Why do they even give us money in the first
Why do they
place?
give us money in the first place? Why if President William Ruto calls a summit, they want to become amicus climate? Why do they keep coming?
I think because, like we said at the beginning, is that they are interested stakeholders, right?
Because?
Well, because they are interested in the African continent.
I think we are still resource rich.
Yes.
And we are still the greatest resource on the globe.
And
Richest in terms of resources.
And they know this.
Still greatest in Africa.
Yeah.
And they know this.
Yeah.
They also are well aware of our ability to mismanage the function of those resources. And I'm saying that it's about time that we took control of the management of that. And that's where the money is.
Yes, but isn't that a process though? Like how do you go from
How long should this process take?
How long
what
do we
does
need
that
to give them?
what does that process look like for you? If I was to say, okay, take us there, right? How would you just map that out?
In the thinking, and it starts there. It starts
Okay,
in
so
the-
you've
it
thought
starts-
about it.
No,
How do you execute?
Okay, look, let's an example right here in Kenya. When we say that you talk about health and you talk about food and you talk about nutrition, right here in Kenya, the floods are coming. El Nino is knocking.
Yes.
It's about to come.
Yeah.
For 10 years, there have been droughts in this country that nobody has really thought about. Disaster management has not been an issue because, it doesn't really matter. If you talk about management of resources, it's in the mind, and you have to be serious about putting in things that will help to mitigate some of these things. You want to be serious about putting your money behind disaster management. You want to be serious about using the resources that you have and then being able to make something from them and put in policies that will be followed by implementation. And people from the outside looking in can see that you're serious about the thing that you have.
Yes.
They'll think twice about coming to talk to you about whether they're going to give you money tomorrow and charge you an arm and a leg for it.
Okay.
And that's
So
what I'm talking
fund
about,
that.
thinking into management.
Fund that thinking, because it will only come to fruition if you implement it. So yes, we know that floods are coming. Okay. The measures that I'm thinking, that I think you're talking of, is how do we harvest this water so that how do we make sure that it doesn't affect as many people? How do we do all those things? How shall we have resilience for the communities that are going to be affected by the flooding? That's money. Where's the money?
Actually, it's budgeted for every year. It's just not put into what it is budgeted for. Because what are we talking about? Dredging rivers. Because over time, that siltation reduces the capacity of rivers. Water pans and all these water collection points that we have, which have filled up over time, ensuring that over time people have the ability to harvest that water. It's not these multi-billion dam projects that we're talking about, number one. Number two, if you were to ask the question and answer it in one statement for a country like Kenya, when we budget for things, can we just do what we said? Because yes, because even when you talk about this management here in this country, we understand full well what needs to be done. We even again budget for it.
Yeah.
But the reason why we keep talking of the problem, because it's never done.
Yes. So that's those are two. I mean, you both raise really important points, and I think it's around governance.
Yeah.
If you ask me, the Nairobi, one of the things that should have come out of the Nairobi Declaration is what responsibility are African leaders taking for this conversation. 100%. That did not come out. And the reason I say that is because we can have all the conversations we want about, debt is expensive, you're overpricing Africa's risk. And yes, there are some risks that are real and some risks that are perceived, as they say. But the risks of, there's corruption risk, political risk, rule of law risks, all these kind of things, right? And MDBs are really good at taking away some of the perceived risks. But there are real risks that you guys are bringing up on governance, corruption, transparency, accountability with resources, right? And I think that should have come out, because you can't keep asking everybody else to do something and you're not pulling your weight. So yes, I think that governance and accountability in terms of resource management is extremely important. It's
but
piece
remember,
of the puzzle.
where the false conversation takes place, you see all the lovely, loud, disruptive statements that we heard, good. The real action in these conferences are the behind-the-scenes conversations.
Okay.
What we do, who gets what, and how they get it. Now, the Business Daily has tried to sort of like sum it up. We're talking about amounts that have been pledged and what have you, and so forth. That's part of the story.
Yeah.
Behind the pledges, there's always another discussion. What our partners in the West cannot do in their own countries, they can do here. Meaning, even as we cut these deals to help us, anyone who is a deal maker and a business person will ensure that they benefit from it. We've seen the West doing this with this matter of climate change and the mitigation. What do? You set up a factory in Africa, because then when you look at the emissions of carbon in your country, it's supposedly reduced because you are no longer doing it, but you're doing it elsewhere. I'm calling it the false note in this conversation. See, we have to take a stand that we are not known to take. The president has started by that disruptive conversation, well-timed, appropriate, apt. Now, the actions that follow, so that you actually show that when you say you're going to do something, you actually do it. Now, that we have not been able to do. So long as we're not able to do it, this conversation that we are having here, this is an academic exercise.
So collectively as a continent, we have not been able to do it?
Collectively as a continent, we have not been able to do it. Collectively in the sense that if you look at country by country by country, and even the problems that they have, a lot of it has to do with them not doing what they're supposed to do.
Okay. And yet collectively as the global north, they've been able to do what they're doing?
Collectively, they've been able to do it. That is actually the bottom line, because they've long understood.
So why?
Huh?
To do what? Katham is asking to do what?
They've understood.
They've not done the decarbonization for sure.
No, because they haven't needed to. Now
it is to players.
Yes, exactly.
They've been able to to run the show.
Yes.
And we've been unable to take the reins of the show.
Yes. We've not been able to look after our own interest. We've been able to take the pittance that drop from the table and they present to us as what we need.
And not sorting out issues in the backyard.
Yes.
And that's the thing.
They've understood
How
this.
will you go? They understand also that it is very difficult for you to come to the table and have a prudent conversation about some of these things, make demands which could be well within your own right as those who suffer the most from a problem that you did not participate the most in creating. They also know that in your backyard you've not sorted out a number of things, so that lessens your potency when you're having the conversation on the table. How do you come and tell people on a global scale we should do 1, 2, 3 when the people in your country are suffering from the effects of a drought that has been there for 20 years?
Let me give you an example, for instance, in the field of, say, medical research. The narrative that you will hear is that the research is meant to benefit us, and we do benefit to some degree, and that it will help us. It does help us, but why then don't they conduct the research projects in their own countries? They also have human beings in their countries. Why? Why are we the only continent that has human beings?
So, I think part of these conversations is that...
I am simply saying there are things you can get away with when you come to... Countries like India put their foot down on many issues. Look at the pharmaceutical world, for instance, and some of these rules that the West puts in terms of patents and what have you. India and China told them to go suck a lemon a long time ago when it comes to some of these matters. Okay? And they figured, quality, it's what? It's a drug. We can figure this thing out. I'm simply saying, and where do you think India is now? India is not a third world country.
So what I'm not getting is exactly... Because problems take money to solve, right?
Problems don't take money to solve, my dear. Problems take the willingness to take those bold steps.
And money.
No. The money is just a tool. If the money is available and that willingness isn't there, we have money in this country. My dear, there are few countries that have been pillaged like this country, and we still stand, which means we have a hell of a lot of money. Now, imagine if that money went to what it's supposed to do. Where do you think we would be?
So, look, in the context of a climate change conversation, we're not having two different... I'm not disagreeing with you, right? And these are contemporaneous issues. We can talk about good governance and...
Who again?
Simultaneous, happening at the same time, eh?
Okay. Simultaneously.
Yes, exactly.
No, she will lose her train of thought.
Yes,
okay,
exactly.
I apologize.
They can happen at the same time, which is we can promote good governance, and that's a very critical part of achieving climate action. But there is a responsibility for the global north to finance and to decarbonize, right, at scale, which is why things like this... and to the question of whether this was actually an Africa climate summit, is why the question of these things like voluntary carbon offsets and things like that they're pretty rubbish at decarbonizing anything, right? So they shouldn't have even been. In fact, the position should have been get these things out of here,
right?
Because what they are doing is just delaying progress and just giving the polluters a carte blanche to keep polluting.
How do you get the West to actually understand comprehensively the responsibility they have? Because they don't actually. And if they do,
understand very well. They understand very well.
I think they want you to think they don't.
Yes.
But they do.
I think they understand very well. But the stakeholders, the invested interests in a world that's not decarbonized are also very strong, right?
Actually.
Those industries, they are lobbyists. It's a very strong thing to it's a huge disruption, and so it will meet the resistance.
I'm hearing, but what do they really understand?
City, you think they do not know that in the world of industrialization, you think they do not know the responsibility that they bear, or that the contribution that they made to what Kathambia so nicely explained about now emissions and what that has done to the rest of the world. They get that. Now,
what do you think they don't understand?
You think they don't understand their responsibility when it comes to now forking out the lion's share of compensations? When it comes to now sorting out some of these issues. They get that. They do not want to. We always say that there are very many nations who will do things based on their interest. Is their interest in forking out more dollars to get something done? No, it's not.
They don't feel they don't need to. Not want to. Need to. Because if they felt they needed, not want, you realize it's incumbent upon you and it's in your interest to do so. See, this conversation that the president has had has brought that conversation on board. They've realized, wait a moment, this divisive tactics, these guys are getting the act together and they begin to figure out that they can talk as one voice.
Right. So, and not just on climate.
Yes, because this parade that we saw here, it was not for nothing. It's that understanding that perhaps this thing is beginning to change and it will not necessarily work for us if we don't get our acts together and come. So you're asking, what don't they understand? They probably didn't figure that the Africans might get to a point where they say, you know something, this is good enough, but we actually ought to do these things on our own. Okay? And mean it. Not say it, mean it. Now that, they hadn't quite figured. Because if they had figured it out, this race and this crowding that we saw in these last 3 days would not have occurred. Something shook them some when they figured, this thing may not be quite working the way we thought.
I think that the only thing that can shake the global north into action, really at this point, because I'm very exasperated, is extreme weather events. The stuff that we're seeing, the flooding, the fires, right? That's the stuff that will shock them into action. Because the status quo is very comfortable. You realize that for the global north, right? No one wants to go without their highly fossil fuel, their high fossil fuel powered conveniences. It's a very difficult thing to do, right? I'll tell you, start hopping on, stop driving your Range Rover and start hopping on the metro, whatever. It's uncomfortable, right? The thing that will compel them is the climate change impact that we're seeing.
Get the effect.
If they feel the effect of climate change, then they'll decarbonize for themselves.
And are we starting to see it already?
We are,
extended summers, extended flooding,
extreme
underwater,
heat,
extreme heat, and they're starting to
flooding. And I think it's nature's way of just saying, you know what?
Come on.
Let's equalize this thing because I mean,
it's been going on for a while.
For a while, yes.
Kathambia, we thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so it was your first time. Come again.
I shall.
Sindio?
Yes.
It was fun.
It was.
Yeah.
Thank
Kathambia Karia is an expert on climate financing, focusing in Africa through her company Creed Advisory. She's been our guest, looking back into the ACS 2023 and what came out of it, and all the conversations about climate and climate action. Keep it here for more conversations. Remember, on the 29th of October, Kathambia will join us at Uhuru Gardens, flagging off of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. The 20th edition of this is taking place.
Creating the right kind of energy.
Absolutely.
Run. So register today. NairobiMarathon.com.
Maybe I'm a walker more than I am a runner.
It's okay. Just join us. Good morning,
Fantastic.
9 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning. This is the Newswire. I'm Leah Obaga. An anti-corruption court will today mention a case in which EACC was ordered to release any devices or documents that are not relevant to a case in which they're probing former Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya. Chief Magistrate Thomas Nziuki had directed both the prosecution and counsel representing Oparanya to have a joint meeting and agree on the documents that are relevant to the case so that they can be retained. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission had obtained search warrants and seized various items belonging to Oparanya. Oparanya, in an application before the court, claimed the sleuths seized and carried away documents, computers, mobile phones and 2 million shillings in cash. He argued that the search orders did not authorize EACC officers to seize and carry away any document without demonstrating the connection between those documents and any alleged crime. The Kenya National Union of Teachers officials have asked the government to declare cancer a national disaster. Speaking at the home of the union's first vice national chairman, the late Stanley Mutai, the officials led by Nandi Nat Branch Executive Secretary Boniface Tenei said the government should set aside enough resources to fight the illness. Tenei said many people in the country have been diagnosed with cancer and there was an urgent need for action on the disease. Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union is now calling on the government to hire more health workers at public health facilities if it aims to improve health services in the country through the new health insurance fund. Led by union official Kizito Sishane, the workers have also asked the government to explain how the 2.75% fund they'll collect will be utilized to avoid corruption cases that have been experienced with NHIF.
Tuko kwa frying pan moja, kwa sifuria ile iko na karangwa ya watu wanyonge, ndio tunasema kaunti lazima ipatikane, ili sisi naye to feel kama tuko nchi ya Kenya kwa upande ya maendeleo.
Naitwa Kapkara Willy. Tungojee process ya kutafuta kaunti yetu. Sisi ni watu wa amani, nataka tuishi na jamii yote kwa amani.
Mbona magavana wengine wote nchi hii kuanzia Busia kuelekea mpaka Homa Bay kwenda mpaka Baringo, hakuna mtu mwenye amepinga wala ambao wanahitaji kaunti, na tuna haki ya kupata kaunti.
On his part, Medical Services PS Harry Kimtai says that the charges can be revised if Kenyans feel they should, as the deduction of 2.75% is aimed at benefiting Kenyans from all walks of life.
There is nothing that is fixed, and that's why in law we provide for amendments. The proposed 2.75% is currently, but as you are saying, we are coming up with the legislations to bring everybody on board. And if you bring everybody on board, there's always what's called you'll enjoy what's called economics of scale, because everybody is contributing.
The Ministry of Health is expected to meet with the Council of Governors today and gather their views on the bill. A woman in Murang'a County has undergone a third corrective surgery for the removal of a surgical needle left in her birth canal after she delivered her child 5 months ago at Kiwara Level 5 Hospital. Evelyn Wairimu will now have to be referred to another specialized hospital after medics at the Maragua Hospital failed to retrieve the needle, which they say is now near her bladder. Evelyn's relatives have called the Murang'a County Health Department to investigate this incident, which they term as medical negligence.
Sasa Evelyn inabidi sasa akamwe maziwa amwage, amekuwa tu tukipitia shida mingi sana. So sisi tunaomba kama haki ipatikane, at least sasa hiyo sindano iko ndani ya mwili itolewe.
Wakuwe waangalifu sana wakati wanatibu wagonjwa. Juu hii si kitu poa, kuacha wagonjwa wa mashindano, awembe kwa tumbo, si poa.
And in the international scene, a man has been arrested in Rwanda after the discovery of more than 10 bodies buried in a hole in the kitchen of his home in the capital, Kigali. Police say the 34-year-old suspected serial killer had lured his victims from bars to his rented home in a Kigali suburb. The suspect had initially been arrested in July on suspicion of robbery and rape, among other offences, but was granted bail due to a lack of evidence, he said, and due to the lack of evidence. That's the Newswire. I'm Leah Obaga.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Okay, we're looking at traffic in different parts of the city this morning. Still pretty busy here and there. It'll take us through on the Thika Superhighway past KCA out towards Pangani at the underpass. That's pretty busy. It's busy now coming out of Westlands, and we're also seeing coming out of Muthaiga on Limuru Road busy as well. Keeps moving, guys. Let's keep it moving. We keep it moving. That's what we do. Let's talk on Spice FM KE on X this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
6 minutes after 9.
This is the situation.
We get on to the final hour of the Situation Room today. It's Thursday. It's the 7th day of September, 2023. Ati we are kimbiaring when?
On the 29th of October.
That's when we are kimbiaring?
Yeah. And you need to go to NairobiMarathon.com.
Okay.
And you do what? Pay 2,000 shillings, register, then you start training small. You know, you can also do the virtual run, which take place a week before.
Have you opened that platform by the way?
Which one?
NairobiMarathon.com. Let's see it.
Why are you giving me homework on a Thursday morning?
www.nairobimarathon.com. Pay 200 bob, 2,000 shillings. Prepare yourself. Get ready to run 20th edition of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon this year, being flagged off at Uhuru Gardens, running along the southern bypass. But also there will be several other runs in several other parts of the country on the same day. And a week prior to this, the virtual run will be taking place. And also you can register same way for the virtual run. Okay, right. So there you go. That website is telling us we have 51 days, 20 hours, 59 minutes, and 53, 2, 1 seconds like to go. Race information?
Iko wapi? Right here. Okay, so it was down there. Race information. So that's all the information. So there's prize money.
Yes.
There are race times.
Yes.
Starting at 5:50 in the morning. The assembly. The race starts at 6 o'clock.
Yes.
Wheelchair race starts at 5:35. Assembly starts at 5:45. The race. 6:35 assembly for the half marathon starts 10 minutes later at 6:45. 7:50 for the 10 km starts at 8 a.m. And there's a meeting at 9:20 for the 5 km, and it starts at 9:30. And finally, the corporate relay challenge at 42 km is at 5:50 meeting time, kicks off at 6 a.m. All the information you need is on www.nairobimarathon.com. You can register there. You find information about the race. You can decide, I'm going to register for 10 people, even if you're not going to run necessarily. But you could see that. Why? Because it goes towards the Future Makers program, where people who are disadvantaged, especially girls and people with disability, get a chance to earn, learn, and grow.
Kabisa. We have another guest who's joining us now for our conversation. In the next hour, we want to talk about preserving our heritage, forgotten architectural designs through the African Heritage House. Haman Muli Bigam is an entrepreneur and founder of Tosheka Products. He's in the studio. Good morning, Haman.
A blessed day to you all.
Karibu sana to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Asante.
Good to have you here.
Thank you.
Hey, and I like your shirt, I like the design.
That's what we do.
Yeah. This is you.
Well, my wife and myself have a textile company.
Right.
So we always must represent that. We introduce actually silk to Kenya.
You introduced silk to Kenya?
Yes, actually, yeah. Erie silk, a particular type of silk that is similar to cotton, but much more ecologically beneficial.
Okay, does it come from the same silkworm?
From the Erie silkworm.
Or is it synthetic?
Oh, no, we don't do synthetic. Everything is natural.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Very nice.
It's called an eco-friendly textile company. Textiles actually are one of the leading causes of environmental pollution.
Yep.
Yeah.
To welcome you to a conversation.
Thank you.
CT Muga has the days. This week's proverbs are from
the Gabonese Republic, otherwise known the country of Gabon.
Yes.
Okay. A young person who travels a lot is older than the old who stayed in the village.
A young person who travels a lot is
older
than
the old who stayed in the village.
Ashe.
You get it?
Ashe.
Yeah. What's your interpretation of this, Herman?
Oh, wonderful. The value of exposure and how knowledge is gained through exposure and keeping your, eyes on the prize. A perfect example for me is always history. George Washington Carver, who was the greatest botanist in the history of the U.S., often talked about observation, and they wondered how he did the marvelous things he did in science and technology, and has vision for the future of biology and botany, and his 200 plus inventions. And he said, the plants talk to me. That means observation, everything that we have and have done and will do is a reflection of nature. And he understood this, and that's why he became such a genius. So referring back to the comment, it's about observation, meaning intense observation is what led him to do what he did. And for a young person who has that exposure and also is a good observer, they could certainly learn more than an MZ like myself who's in the village.
Who just sits in the village, doing nothing much. Right.
It is said that the primary source of data collection is observation.
Yes.
In terms of scientific studies, they even have observational studies where you observe. You look, as I would say, and see.
Yeah.
But everyone who looks doesn't see.
That usually is the problem. Yeah.
People look,
but they don't see.
No. Okay.
So
the African Heritage House.
Yes, sir.
We know the African heritage from the late Alan Donovan and the work that he did.
Yes.
And putting up this house. But there are many people who don't know it.
Oh my God.
First of all, what's your association with or interest with the African Heritage House?
Well, I'm an African from the U.S. I'm an MZ, and much of my life has been dedicated to appreciation and sharing of the power of African culture. In my later years, I took off from work, and I did like 13 years as a developer and producer of exhibitions of African art. Have managed many collections. I've had 3 million people in the U.S. see our exhibitions, my organization's exhibitions, which I mounted and carried throughout the United States. And the responses I got were like written dissertations. I mean, anyone who does public events and who always try to get feedback. Well, everyone who's done it knows it's hard to get feedback. But the impact of these exhibitions and putting our people in touch with their culture was revolutionary. And it was revolutionary for two reasons. One, because African was doing it, because Europeans had totally colonized African culture material. And secondly, the way in which we did it. We started out in a local museum, a local school, a local library in Philadelphia, my hometown, where there was a very impoverished area. And we wanted to bring it to the people, even though we were talking about world-class art. Well, in the end, the main branch library was so bombarded after hearing about what we had done, they were taking busloads of people to the hood to see the exhibit. So there's a power. One of the things I really want to emphasize is the power of our culture, and and the impact it can have on our impact it will have and can have on our daily lives and our success in life, both collectively as Africans and individually. So when I walked upon African heritage and met Alan and began to see the things he did, and that he had supported the community to do the here and abroad, I was blown away, because I've traveled the world seeking exposure and knowledge in European museums mainly, and in American museums, to be able to see and to understand and work with African scholars to learn about our culture material, so I could share it on the level in which it should be done. And to come here and to find out in Mololongo, and it's so sad, because it's like so much a hidden treasure. I mean, there's nothing like it on the planet, I can tell you, because I've traveled a lot of it, and what I haven't traveled, I've researched. And
you don't find much of it.
Oh, and the benefit for which it brings. Really, we're talking about. See, most people, when they go to African heritage, they look, it as art and craft. This is not art and craft. This is science, technology, architecture, physics, chemistry, and when I do a tour with whoever I take through, those are the things I illustrate.
Those are the things that you point out.
Yeah.
So what is it in the African Heritage House? What did Alan Donovan do? And how did he come up with his house? What did he put in his house?
Okay, well, he and my say mentor, or the person I am most revered to in Kenya, his partner, they put together a series of commercial enterprises that exposed African culture. Okay, him and Joseph Marumbi. Mr. Marumbi, I think often, and I say to people sometimes, imagine if Marumbi, who was the vice president, would have become president, and imagine 19 years without Moi. Where would Kenya be? Seriously, I mean, Kenya be on another level, another globally. But so it's important that these men and these people and what they did be understood, appreciated, cherished, and followed. Okay, so how they first did a series of commercial enterprises, and then Alan decided to do this home museum, and which has about 6,000 so-called objects of African culture, and he kind of very much did it personally and to a large extent on his own, if you know what I'm saying. Meaning he did the design, he managed the construction, I'm also, another thing that endears me to what he did is I'm a builder, in the U.S., so I've built major cultural institutions. I've been the manager and director of major cultural institutions that I didn't build. I built a $6 million performing arts center in Philadelphia that I financed, built, conceived from nothing, for my community. It's called Allende, which had a profound impact. So I know what it took for Alan to do what he did. When I see what he did, other people, when they see it and it's like magnificent. Yes, it is. But when you know what it takes to do it, in terms of the management and everything else. Also, I managed a similar cultural facility in the U.S. That was dedicated for the same purpose as his, which was the preservation and exposure of the traditional work of the nomadic people, like the Pokot, Rendili, Maasai, etc. who were the original ecologists, by the way. You know, we have this, major program downtown today, dealing with climate change. Well, that's what I'm saying about the culture. And we are taught that the Europeans are the ones who are, the ones who've, acknowledged the people who've done the most damage to the earth are now being credited as the ones who are the most sensitive to ecology, which is see, if you don't know your culture, people can feed you any nonsense. And that's pure nonsense. Because you spend some time with the Rendili and the Samburu, you'll see.
We've often spoken of the preservation of culture.
Yes.
But I think that has been a almost single-minded, single-cased view. And I think that the preservation of culture then must also be accompanied by the preservation of knowledge, the preservation of information and data that was there many, many years ago.
Ashe.
How then do these things actually then bring out to communities who should understand? The museums are usually for people to come and see, but how can we now use these that we have around us then to be able to relearn things that we lost through processes of colonization, processes of other things? How can we relearn and use?
I almost can't believe you asked me this, and particularly with the terms and the manner and the terms. It's like you read my notes. Okay? I have a note here that talks about Sankofa, which is just what you described, reaching back. The Sankofa is a concept from the Akan people of Ghana and Ivory Coast. And Sankofa is a bird, one, and the bird is depicted looking forward, sort of standing and reaching forward, but actually looking back. The head's totally turned around. And the purpose of this depiction was to say that we need to go forward, we need to reach back, take that which is good, beneficial, and historically time-tested and proven to work, like the maturation of young people and teaching them about how they should live, how they should interact with each other, how they, as adults, what their roles and responsibilities are. Those are the kind of things that we bring out in our presentation of exhibitions of our culture material. It's not about art. That's why I always say that, because it's about reaching back, seeing what's valuable, and taking it, amplifying it, modifying it for today, and taking it forward. Now, a commercial or economic example is what's called motobayeni or neem. Neem, grows there's more neem or motobayeni in Africa than there is in all of India. But because of what you said, the brainwashing by the West and the Europeans, whose population now uses 60% of the population, they use natural botanicals. But they told us this is voodoo. This is, backwards. But 60% of them use it, okay? Now, that's in Europe and America. Whereas neem, or motobayeni, is $1 billion a year enterprise in India. So now, we're talking economics and culture. Yeah. See, it's seldom are they linked. But, culture is everything, because I hate to speak of this, but a very good friend of my family and ours, who's Kamba, who was a farmer, who was a well-known, farmer in his community in Wote, he passed somewhat recently from a disease that could have been cured by the most prominent tree in his front yard. He had one of the biggest neem trees I've ever seen, okay? But he wouldn't touch it. Why? Because of the boogeyman, because of the white, white Jesus boogeyman nonsense. So And the sad part, we loved this brother. By the time we could get him to take water by any, he was like, "Oh, I'm feeling better. This is good for me," because he couldn't hold anything down, you know. And it hurt us because we couldn't help him because of the brainwashing.
Because of what has happened over time. But then, do you think it's possible for us, Harmon, to actually get to a point where we look at those two? So there's what the Europeans came and taught our people, right? And they told our people that this is wrong, this is the right thing. There's what our people knew for years, for centuries, as the right thing. Right. And we still have it. Is it possible for us to actually go back and start holistically appreciating it?
Well, that's what Sankofa refers to, going back and fetch it. It literally, that's what it means.
What would
go
it
back
take?
And fetch it. Go back and take what is ours.
What did it take to get more and more people agreeing to that clarion call?
Just a little exposure, back to what the original proverb, exposure, the proper exposure, because see, the truth is powerful. See, the truth will stand where the nonsense will fall.
Yeah.
Okay? And so that's what we have to do. We have to demonstrate it in our lives. We have to show people, like, boom. For example, one of the things I'm doing now in the business is producing a organic fertilizer, prominently made of neem. Okay? Just to let you know, neem, about 14 years ago, the U.S. government funded an international study of the world's botanicals to determine what would be the most important botanical to the human population of the world for the future. ICIPE was involved. Organizations and scientists from all over the planet were involved in this study. Neem came out number one. Okay? That's how powerful it is. But it's in our backyard, but we cut down the tree. You know? So we have to look at the insanity that's been created through the colonial experience. Okay? And look at the economics. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Because, you know, without us, I mean, the same thing about this, you know, like this, right now there's a war in Europe, and all of a sudden there's a country we never heard of, which is supposedly be the greatest exporter of grain, fertilizer, Now, I never heard of this damn country before. You know what I'm saying? I heard this name, but I never heard of it any prominence, right? But all of a sudden, it's that important. Well, our dependence, we have people starving here and across the continent and other places because of what? Not knowing their culture. Because if they knew their culture, they'd be on neem. Neem is the best fertilizer and pesticide on the planet. Example, I did a program on BBC a year and a half ago regarding the locusts. Remember we had locusts?
Yep.
Oh, God, the locusts. What were the people doing? Taking cooking pans and beating them with a stick. Come on now. If you knew your culture, you'd be on neem. The neem would have protected the plants, in other words, the plants that the people were growing, it would have been protected by spraying neem, not poisonous chemicals. See, but when you stray from your culture...
Really?
So
you spray neem on the crop?
Yes.
And what?
The
locust dies or the locust is...
No, you spray it on your plants. It kills the locust, okay? But beyond that, it protects the plants.
You know, the question that is then asked, you know, now we've waded into scientific waters. A neem in Kiswahili is called mwarubaine.
Yes.
Arobaine is 40 in Kiswahili.
Right.
The reason why it's called mwarubaine is because it is assumed it has 40 properties and probably more that are of use to mankind.
Sawa.
Now, some of them have been scientifically proven. We have neem creams, we have neem soaps, we have, as you say correctly, we even have neem fertilizers. But the broad spectrum use of local solutions, yes, it's a valid point. But I am not going to give neem 100% when it comes to being able to prevent locust invasions and stopping them from attacking.
it.
Because, yes, you would need to. Why I'm saying this, my brother, is this. You see, locusts didn't start coming to this continent 2 years ago.
No.
No, we've had locust invasions from time immemorial.
Mhm.
And there's a way in which they are managed.
That's true.
Now, not every place in, for instance, Kenya has neem trees. Neem trees are predominantly found at the coast and the area and those environs. So, how did people manage locust attacks? How did they manage these invasions?
That's right. That's another area of knowledge that we need to know.
Yes.
Let me give you an example, though. You know how neem was discovered by Europeans?
No.
In Kenya?
No.
A German back in the 50s, he discovered it. Quote, discovered. Quote, unquote, discovered.
Never mind that there were people there before.
Of course,
Yeah,
right?
okay, yeah.
He discovered it for Europeans because of him noticing, observation, that when there was a major locust attack, and he noticed that how come the locusts sit in the neem tree but don't eat it? That's how it became. That's how Europe became aware of neem. He then did the science. He then wrote many books on the subject. But just to show you about that, let's get back to African Heritage House.
Yes,
and its issues. Because I don't know how much time we have. I'm here, as you know now, because I am a person who has a keen sense of history and appreciation of what culture and history can do for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's take a break. And when we come back and now look at the African Heritage House, because the whole conversation is about, preserving the architectural design that is the African Heritage House, the culture, everything that's in the African Heritage House. There's the why and there's the how, right? So it's 29 minutes to 10. Time for us to take that break. Herman Moli Begum is the founder of Tosheka Products and is also very, 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 very passionate about culture and looking back and preserving our culture and our artifacts. That's why we're having him here in the studio. Remember, chai means Masiwa. Masiwa means dairy best.
But you could say Masiwa means milk.
And milk means
chai. And chai means not water with a few drops of milk, but no. Milk aplenty, brewed with the tea, and preferably the milk should be
dairy best.
Zuri is
Dairy best.
Ndio hiyo.
Yeah. Chai, the dairy best. Make sure that you go and buy dairy best. And why dairy best? Because dairy best is a long lasting, it's a long life milk. These were the first guys to actually introduce proper long life milk and package in the market. And it's important. You think of traveling anywhere, just buy dairy best. Go with it. You'll be able to consume it however you go, wherever you go.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
What are your goals for future study? High academic standards, amazing learning environment, multicultural communities? Well, the Study in Japan Global Network brings you the Study in Japan Fair for Kenya 2023 for students in arts, business, international studies, languages and sciences. Come and meet with 18 Japanese universities on Friday, September 15th at the Embassy of Japan from 10 a.m. Plenty of scholarships are available. Apply before you leave or apply when you land. To join this event, log on to www.studyinjapanforafrica.com now.
Oh, finally! It's my Standard Courier delivery.
At Standard Courier, we know that your time is valuable. That's why we guarantee swift and efficient deliveries to your doorstep every time. Give us a call on 0793 599 684 or schedule your next delivery by visiting our website www.standardmedia.co.ke/courier. Trust Standard Courier Service for all your courier needs. We deliver with pride.
All right, so we're looking at 18 and sunny conditions in Nairobi, highs of 26 and lows of 14. 12 be the low in a partly sunny Nakuru, going to highs of 27, and we'll see highs of 25 in Nyeri, where it's sunny at 17. Looking into Eldoret, sunny at 15, highs of 22 and lows of 12. It's sunny at 25 in Mombasa, highs of 30 and lows of 23. And we'll see lows of 24 in a mostly sunny Malindi at 27. It's 21 and cloudy in Kisumu, highs of 28 and 26 will be the high in a mostly cloudy Kakamega at 17. The rain keeps coming down in Kampala, highs of 28 and lows of 17 and 22 will be the low in a sunny Dar es Salaam at 26. Johannesburg is sunny at 12, highs of 25. And looking into Lagos, clear at 24, highs of 30 and highs of 34 and lows of 23. In a partly sunny Kinshasa. Looking out into Beijing, Thursday going into evening, 31 and partly sunny, highs of 33. And we'll see highs of 33 in Paris today with high temperature warnings. London is hazy at 18, highs of 30. And New York is waking up soon. It's 27, highs of 34 and lows of 24 into Thursday.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. And right, 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, so still looking at a little bit of traffic coming off the Thika Superhighway, but can get through this without too much of an issue. It's just at that Pangani underpass Nook that will have a little bit of traffic, and Uhuru Highway as you get off of Capital Centre heading out towards Westlands. That will slow down for you just a little bit, but you should be fine after that. Traffic hour comes to an end right about now. See what happens through the morning. Talk to us on Spice FM KE on X.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
Continues with our guest this morning, Herman, who is the founder of Tosheka Products. We're talking about the preserving forgotten architectural designs through the African Heritage Home. And you say you've taken many people to the African Heritage Home. And people look at many things, but you point them towards
science, technology.
Right. Why?
Right, chemistry. Well,
and what kind of science, technology, chemistry are we seeing in that house?
All of it, from physics, chemistry, literature, mathematics. When we're taught to think about mathematics, we're taught to think philosophy, et cetera, et cetera. We're taught to look to Europe. Instead of looking at Southern Africa for the Ashango bone, which was the original slide rule. Some of you might be too young to know what a slide rule is, but it was a means of mathematical calculations.
Before the calculator.
Right, before the calculator, before the computer. 10,000 years ago, the Ashango bone is dated, and it is a mathematical treatise. But if you don't know, you still look to Europe. Same thing with architecture. Some years ago, as a builder, I'll never forget, I invited an architect who was a friend to my home to share some history and culture with him. I showed him a video of ancient architecture and of ancient Egypt, and he started crying. And I'm like, what? He was like, man, you don't know. I've been lied. He said, I've studied architecture on X number of levels, and it's always the Greeks and the Romans. He said, all of this came from Kemet, from our ancestors. Yeah. He was pissed. I never forget it because, that's what happens when you're robbed and you realize you've been robbed. It's just like African cultural material. If you want to see it in quality and in mass, you got to go to where it was stolen. Like in Belgium, where there's a museum called the Taverne, where they hold 60,000 items of African art they've held for almost 100 years. Many of the crates still had never been opened. Okay? So that's the other thing we're working on. To get back to
please go ahead.
The African heritage, African heritage, in my opinion, we stand between the destruction and the restoration of a world treasure. African Heritage House it has been undertaken over by, in a hostile manner, away from the people who for years have been dedicated to its success. When Alan died, now a year and a half plus ago, a word went out from the staff that, one, he died, two, there was a need for support. Myself, persons like myself, people who have been involved with African Heritage for 20, 30 years, came together, about 35 people, okay? And we put together an organization to handle his funeral, okay? And also to look towards the future of African Heritage House.
Can I just halt you there? When you say African Heritage House, was it owned by an organization or was it owned by an individual?
Individual.
It was owned by an individual.
Alan owned it.
Okay. So the artifacts and everything that were within African Heritage House, were they also owned by the individual or was it owned by a fund or a trusteeship?
Good question.
Yes.
Owned, individual.
It was owned by an individual.
Okay.
So when the 35 of you come along, so you are coming along as friends of Alan Donovan.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and we were asked to come in to help.
Who by?
Oh, by the staff. Tom, who was
the people who
were operating.
Who worked at the house.
Yes,
worked at the
right.
house.
Yeah, some of which have been there 25 years.
Yes.
Okay, so what happened? We were asked to come, and get involved, and at the time we didn't know that there was no money to bury him. We found out later that Tom, who would work with him for probably 25 years, and had been involved somewhat as an administrator, never had the right to sign a check. Okay, so the organization, once we became aware of it, we organized and did everything to send him away in a really magnificent manner. Okay, and raise the money. Okay, which is something around $10,000 US, and that all went very well. And at the first meeting we had, Katilli, who was one of the people who Alan had named as a board member or trustee some years ago.
He had a board.
No. Let me explain.
Yes.
He introduced himself and said, hey, he came late to the meeting, introduced himself and said, listen, I'm Katilli. I have no real standing other than being a person like yourselves interested in supporting, African heritage. And ultimately, we chose him as the manager, whatever, of the group. The group worked together wonderfully and gave Alan a great send-away. Subsequent to that, there was this. He and Tom basically did a hostile takeover. In that,
let me pause you again. As an African, I have to ask: Alan didn't have relatives.
Have relatives?
Yes, I mean
no.
Because
yes.
if friends come in to assist,
he didn't have.
I'm assuming he did not have kith and kin who would sort of like come in and
take over.
Yes, and then the next question I'm going to ask is, did he have a will?
Okay, he had a will. Okay, let me take you through the process. Okay.
Yes.
So what happened? After he was buried, there was supposed to be a meeting in which the kith and kin were these 30 people I'm describing. Those were the kith and kin. That was his family, if you know what I'm saying. In the U.S., he was very estranged from his family. He had one sister that I'm aware of that didn't really, even when he was in the hospital for 6 months, she didn't come to his aid. So his kith and kin was these 30 people who came together to bury him. Okay, so then what happened, there was a meeting supposed to have happened, follow-up meeting, at which time we were supposed to read, the will was supposed to be read, and there were certain things that had been discussed regarding, that were Alan's quote will. Like, for example, he expressed a great interest in Will that this book that he had written over the last 7 years be published. And he wanted, so we talked about.
What is the book about?
Interesting. Mainly African women deities and people of high rank. Yeah. I've previewed the book with him and actually made some contributions. Anyway, the point is that.
So he wanted the book published.
It wasn't, of course.
One of the
One of the things he really wanted to see happen.
Yeah.
Of course, he had a will. Okay, and the will named several people, Catilli, Tom, Margaret, certain people as being the trustees. It named Tom as being the executor.
Right.
Now, to become an executor, you have to apply to the local government. So even though in your will you choose an executor, the executor has to be acknowledged.
They've got to get the power from.
Yeah, and accepted and certified. Anyway, the same thing. Back to your question about was there an organization. 4 years ago, Alan made a proclamation at a meeting, an event that he hosted, and he introduced. He told the crowd that I am having a trust set up and I'm having a board set up, and he introduced the people who were going to be principals in that. That never happened. Okay,
so it never followed through.
There was never a trust set up, sadly, before he died, and then there was and this board that was quote set up. They never met for 4 years. Okay, so after. That first meeting was canceled, where the will was supposed to be read. There was a second meeting. At this meeting, we were introduced to a woman who was supposed to be a art development consultant. Now, this person was never interviewed by the group. Just Tom and Catilli, nominated her, chose her, and contracted her to do planning for African heritage. Now, what was problematic was this is a person who's never been on the campus, who knew nothing about it. And after, even beyond that, she never interviewed the people who were, like so many, involved for multiple years, and interviewed the staff, et cetera, et cetera. She was supposed to come back within 3 weeks. She was supposed to be taking in our input and then coming back within 3 weeks and giving her, overall analysis. This never happened. So a series of things that were important, like that, never happened. Additionally, I found out that the estate was in a bad situation because I'll call it the African Heritage House was never has never submitted a declaration and listing of the art to the National Museum. The National Museum was it actually saved African Heritage House from being destroyed because of the train track issue. So National Museum nominated African Heritage as a national monument. So it was held as a national monument, which saved it. Now, but Alan never followed through, nor did the museum, to be able to provide to them the information as to what these 6,000 items were. Not even 100, not even a list of 100 was provided.
So, and all these things is because Alan wasn't doing it.
Right.
Because it was Alan's home.
Right.
It was his private property. Much as he was engaging with the national museums and all, he never at any point signed up anything with the National Museums of
He did. No, he did.
Did he?
Oh, yes.
And what
absolutely.
did he sign up?
Absolutely. I have a copy of it here.
What was that?
No, it's okay, the National Museum and Heritage Act. This is for him to get the protection of becoming a national monument. with the protection of
But
the
it doesn't
museum.
list what is being protected. It doesn't say whether it's a
They
house
are-
plus the
no, it
artifacts
does.
inside.
Everything's here.
So there's a list then.
Yeah, no, it's a list of what's supposed to be. In other words, the art's protected, the building's protected, the content's protected, but there's no list of contents
All right.
of
So
the actual art contents.
do you know why that didn't happen?
Well, that's one of the problems that we've been addressing. I put together an ad hoc group of those 30 people who had initially met, who've worked with African heritage for years, and that's what we have been trying to get sorted out. Also, Alan had just sold a major property in the U.S. because prior to Alan leaving for the U.S., he had tried to sell the property, actually, okay? And that was like two and a half years ago. Now, one, it was illegal for him to sell it without giving notice to the museum, okay?
But can you actually sell a national monument?
No.
No.
What was he selling?
No, you can sell it. I mean, I take it back. You can sell it. He was selling the property, the building, the property, the art, everything.
The African Heritage House.
It is, absolutely.
But you see, once something is designated a national monument, in essence, you can't actually own it.
Well, let me just...
As an individual.
That's what I'm trying to understand.
Okay, let me explain.
If he signed off, then he has signed off that this now belongs to the people of Kenya.
Yes.
Okay,
to be
but
managed by the National Museums of Kenya.
Okay, so let me read to you what it says specifically.
Okay.
Basically, that the documents basically say that if the person who owns it wants to sell it, they must offer it to the National Museum first.
For first refusal.
For first right of refusal.
Right.
He didn't do that either. And he, in fact, there's he bought 2 full-page ads.
Advertising
and selling.
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, the point is, so there were many things that were problematic.
Was there a buyer before he died?
Myself.
You bought it?
No.
Okay.
No. We were negotiating for about a year.
So he hadn't signed off?
No. We hadn't
property.
come to an agreement. But he wanted. Well, put it this way. He expressed. Okay, this is what happened. I went to see him because I heard that things were in very dire states economically. Electricity was cut off, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And so I said, then what could I do to help? Because he knew my background. And he said to me, well, Mooley, at this point, the only thing you can do to help is to buy it. And I was like, whoa, I didn't come here for that.
Yeah.
I came here to volunteer.
But there's something I'd like to understand. Because I grew up hearing of African heritage from the earliest times, from when it was situated along Kenyatta Avenue. The significance of Heritage House and its relevance to the history of this country.
Yes. It's monumental.
Yes. The national museums would not have sought and would not have gone to the process of making it a national monument if it didn't have cultural or historical significance.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, as things stand,
yes,
whatever it is that is national or is
a monument.
Of African heritage,
it
is still intact. Because
what is what intact? I'm not sure.
Not the building. Everything that is
artifacts inside.
Well, let me explain. Okay,
Yes.
now let's talk about that. Okay. The reason I'm here is that, one, as I said, there's a group. We met as a group. We worked as a group. We worked well as a group, and then all of a sudden there was this hostile takeover, and this hostile takeover has continued for the last 2 years. And the group of people who have been the long-standing supporters of African heritage have been totally sidelined.
But
Let me finish, please.
What are they taking over? I have to ask this question because if they're taking over, what are they taking over?
Let me. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. One, they took over. They said their position was, we are the trustees. Of course, you can't be a trustee unless there's a trust. There was no trust. Okay. So, and in his will, he said he wanted, if I die before there is a trust set up, I want the trust to be set up in either of these names. I did research 5 months ago, and at that point there was no trust set up. Okay.
As of 5 months ago.
As of 5 months ago. Now, subsequent to that, I directed that information to Tom and Catilli, and they then sent me a form indicating that, in fact, in August of the prior year, there was a trust. But in reviewing what they sent me, the document had, how would I just put it, some issues. Okay. So they basically took over because, in my opinion, they had some ulterior motives. Because how can you look to run something as absentee landlord, if you know what I'm saying? How can you take 30 people who have dedicated their life, who've grown up there and have dedicated and have stated that they stand to maintain and develop this facility, and thrust them away? And that's what exactly they did. Now, where it stands now is I took these issues and many other, well, for example, you asked about the art. There's been major art stolen, okay? And what troubled me most was that, one, it was stolen, two, the lack of follow-up. I confronted, when I found out about the art that was stolen, I contacted Tom, and I asked him, I said, well, have you reported it to the police? Tom is the person who worked with Alan for about 25 years. He was the driver.
It's like a personal assistant.
Personal assistant, exactly. Okay, so now it's the same personal assistant who didn't have the right to sign a check so that he could get money out of the account. So subsequently what happened, we had put pressure on them to be accountable in regards to the artwork. For example, when his artwork was stolen, Tom did not contact the police or the museum, which is required, in a timely manner. In fact, I don't know if the museum ever got notice, all right? And we're talking about some very important artwork, okay, by a master artist, all right? So the fact that you'd have to have a record of no contents of what is there is extremely troubling. So I brought all this to the National Museum. It took 7-8 months ago, I contacted the director of antiquities. This is the same person. His name is Frederick. Last name, okay, I'll give it to you. But anyway, he's the director of antiquities and monuments. Yes. So it took me 4 months to meet him. After meeting him and me reviewing all the issues that in the contract breaches in which exist between African Heritage and the museum, and the museum has a fiduciary responsibility to protect the cultural property of the nation. He says to me, this is a real problem. I'm going to follow up on it. Okay. 3 months later, we had a second meeting in which the director, the overall director of the museum, who's I'm trying to remember his official. Okay, yeah, his official designation is Director General. He was supposed to be at the meeting, but he had been copied on all of our complaints. Right. Well. Let me cut you short because we just have about 45 seconds to conclude this conversation. What I'm hearing here is that there's a battle for control. And there's a group of two. And then there are people who are listed as executor and all of the last will and testament of the late Alan Donovan. Mm-hmm. The 30 of you, what's your legal standing? We are the conscious of the arts of culture, of arts and culture. That's our legal standing.
You're essentially friends of Donovan.
You're friends of African heritage. But okay, so the bottom line situation is, I'm here to challenge the museum because in the end, the museum did not pledge to do an investigation of of our charges and issues and the stolen art and all the other stuff. And the hostile takeover, but they haven't done it. And so I'm asking the audience and the public to contact the Minister of Culture and sports, and also the board members of the museum. And we're going to officially direct correspondence to them complaining about the museum's
you want
lack of...
You want the State Department for Culture to take action.
Yes.
The national museums to take action.
Well, actually, the board of directors, because the actual staff and the director have not taken action.
Okay.
And it's been 8 months.
The institution to take action.
Exactly.
We hear you. Herman, we thank you for coming. And I think this is a conversation we can continue a while later. Herman Muli Begum is the founder of Tosheka Products. He's one of the friends of the late Alan Donovan. He's been here talking about what's happening with the African heritage.